The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hello, this is Zack Sabre Jr., New Japan Cup winner 2018, and you're listening to Keepin It Strong Style with my mates. Enjoy.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith and Phil Lindsey of Grapsody. On today's show, we'll review nights 11 through 15 of G1 Climax 34, preview the finals, and cover all the latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You also get the network's podcast over at socialsuplex.com. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. We are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KIStrongstyle for IWGP subscribers. If you want access to the weekly live stream, ad-free audio, and bonus content, you can subscribe at patreon.com/KIStrongstyle. And like I said in the intro, we are joined by Phil Lindsey of Grapsody. Phil, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Glad to have you on the show. Last time we saw each other was Chicago, Windy City Riot, a little fan meet up there, and then head to the show. So yeah, good to finally have you on the show here.
Yeah. So good night. That was Jack in Chicago. Mox winning IWGP Championship. It's a good night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And young boy, how you doing?
Well, as you can see, and this is probably something that the Patreon subscribers are going to notice more so than anybody else, the beard is gone. The boss told me I had to shave it. She told me I was starting to look, as, and I quote, like a Republican. But then she told me to keep the mustache, and then she said, you still look like a Republican, but a more handsome one. So, and keep in mind, guys, I'm not a Democrat, or actually, you know what? I am a registered Democrat, but just so I can vote in primaries, I'm probably more like, I don't know, libertarian, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I RIP to the beard. If we had higher production, this is a point where I Will Remember You would be playing in the background. We do a montage to the beard. It's gone. Jeremy, you're back from your vacation. How was your anniversary? Congratulations. I don't know if you heard me shout you out at the very, very tail end of last week's episode. Congratulations on your anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah, I listened to last week. Shout out to you for getting the show out there last week, having the JCast boys on and Chris Samsa. Y'all did a great job breaking down nights 8 through 10 and getting us to the point at where we're at right now. So yeah, St. Augustine was cool. I drank from the Fountain of Youth, so I'll be around for the next 100 years. So Keeping the Strong Style will be going 100 years.
Sometimes I wonder how long Keeping a Strong Style is going to last.
Celebrating your wedding anniversary?
Yeah, 2-year wedding anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks, Phil.
But we, when we ran into Phil in Chicago, we had talked about getting him on the show, and this is long overdue. So, glad to have someone that is in the community, always commenting, always, in my opinion, putting up pretty good posts and has pretty good takes. And we takes ratings and opinions. It's not a game here on Keeping It Strong Style. So glad to have a like-minded individual.
Yeah. Got to make sure you say in your opinion, because, everybody don't be agreeing on things, man. Can't make it seem like things you say are fact.
Well, I do, but
well, Phil, every time we have a first-time guest, we like to get their New Japan background. So, first question, when did you start watching New Japan full-time?
I feel like around 2016, 2017, like when it really got hot again. That was when Wrestle Kingdom 10 was 2016, right? That was the year we got the Nakamura AJ Styles match, and that was when I first really started watching.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like that's definitely a big entry point for a lot of people. A lot of people following AJ Styles during that time. So who's your favorite New Japan wrestler? Maybe, I don't know if you want to go current or all time or both.
All time is probably Okada. Currently, I'm gonna say Naito because Naito's still with the company. But current Naito is very, very interesting. He's still got all the charisma in the world, but sometimes those matches are a little rough.
one thing, before we ask you the next question, for people that are paying attention online, I don't know if you've noticed, we have changed the Keepin' It Strong Style logo. It did used to be Okada in the silhouette. We have changed it to Tanahashi because we got ribbed too many times by Social Suplex member James Boyd for having a logo that included someone that's now part of the Elite. So anybody that's looking, if you check our Twitter, if you are watching the stream right now, you can see it right above my head. That's Tanahashi, and we're pretty sure he's not going to leave. So we feel pretty confident.
Nah, President Tanahashi's in for the long run. And no Naito slander. I love Naito. I just time is catching up with Naito, unfortunately. That's all.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about Naito here in a second. Before we get into that, one last question for you, Phil. What is your favorite New Japan match of all time?
How do I not be cliche and say Okada Omega from Wrestle Kingdom? Because I feel like that's the answer. It is the answer, but I feel like I have to give another answer because it's such a cliche answer. I'm a big fan of the triple threat of Prince Devitt versus Loki and Ibushi. I think Ibushi's the last person in that match. Mm-hmm. Really fun match. That's the match where Loki pissed everybody off, coming out there with the Hitman gear. A lot of controversy around it, but very, very fun match. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I didn't want to be completely cliche and coming here like Okada Omega because I mean it's hard to not say that because it's one of the best matches ever.
You know, you would think that we get that answer a lot, but we hardly ever do, and I think it's probably because of the fact that it's such a heralded, feud and everything that I think we almost never hear that actually.
Or usually it's people will go the 2 out of 3 falls at Dominion.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's either the Wrestle Kingdom match or the Dominion match.
For me personally, I mean, I think the apex of the feud is the final one, but my favorite match of the entirety of the series is the first match at Wrestle Kingdom. They'd never touched before. Well, I mean, they had in multi-man matches, but they'd never had a singles match ever before. To me, that's the most like complete, concise version of the match because the next one was hour-long draw. Then you had the G1 like sprint, and then the super, super long 2 out of 3 falls. I feel like the first one is the one that like set the tone for fucking everything. Plus it broke the scale. So
yeah. I feel like in about maybe a year or so, people are going to be saying the Okada Bryan match because it's incredible. And I feel like it's not on a lot of people's favorites because it kind of feels like it hasn't had the time to age, but still one of the best matches of this year.
It is. That's an interesting thing. Some years there's like just one standout New Japan match that, we can all kind of see like that's going to be the consensus like match of the year. But I don't feel like there is one this year. There have been a lot. I mean, the cage match, Brian and Zach, some of these G1 matches that have happened. There's been a lot of stuff that a wide variety of fans like, including the Danielson Okada match. So it's gonna be a tough one to see what people say is the match of the year this year.
Yeah, just for New Japan?
Just for New Japan, yeah, for us.
Yeah, because you do still have like the Zach Danielson match as well. It's a lot of matches. I mean, it's a few matches from this tournament too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the voting's be really interesting in our year in awards. And like you mentioned, Josh, you had the dog pound cage match. I feel like that kind of gets forgotten about, but I thought that was great. Hanare almost dying in there, getting his head bust with the white meat.
See, now we can say that like almost like he almost died, but like at the time it wasn't funny. But now it's like, fuck, bro, he almost died. What an incredible match.
Yeah. So yeah, awesome stuff. Well, let's jump into G1 Climax 34. So we got nights 11 through 15 to talk about. So first, I just want to kind of highlight some attendance numbers. So night 11 was in Cork and Hall as night 12. So night 11, they had a sold out crowd of 1,503. Night 12, they had one more person in the building, 1,504. And compared to last year, what'd you say?
That's a word. They didn't count one extra person. That's a fucking lie.
So based off last year, the Corkins were night 7 and night 8. They were 1,471, 1,472. So up about 2.18% versus Corkin from last year. And then night 13 was in the Yokohama Budokan, which was 2,906 compared to last year's 2,360 from night 15. So a 23.14% increase there. Night 14 was in the Zebu Arena Sendai. We had 2,631, and then last year it was 1,657. So a almost 59% increase there in attendance for that night. Don't have the numbers from tonight's show, night 15, but overall it seems like we've seen a really positive increase here in G1 numbers.
Yeah, the numbers are up. There have been some shows that we talked about last week where the numbers were down in some of those newer buildings. But, again, I when I was on the show last week, I told those guys, I don't really track the numbers, the business side of things as much as some of the other shows do. But these are positive signs. Growth is growth. They're not huge numbers, but it is a positive sign in the right direction that the company is moving forward. And, we're going to see what these last few nights of the G1 look like. That's when they're in the big buildings, and that's going to kind of really dictate the full success of this tournament.
Yeah, Rambo says Gabe Kidd makes the line go up. Well, let's start with the A block here. So we had the last A block night 15 today. So we have the 30 guys who are set to go into the knockout round. So we'll start with the guy who is in first place, who won the A block, going in with that bye into the quarterfinals, is Zack Sabre Jr. So he ends with 7-2, 14 points. Night 11, he defeated Evil. Night 13, defeating Gabe Kidd. Night 15, defeating Sonata. Phil, what do you thought about Zack, maybe overall in tournament, and especially this last stretch here, the 3 wins in a row?
I'm feeling pretty good because Zach was my pick to win this tournament, and he's been incredible. Beating Evil in 19 seconds was the greatest thing I've ever seen. I stood up in my house watching it live at 3 a.m, cheering, because I was like, yes, get him up out of here. That was great. I think he's had phenomenal matches throughout. Him and Shingo, of course, always have great chemistry. Him and Sonata have great chemistry. And the Gabe Kidd match was fantastic as well. Gabe Kidd has, throughout this tournament, forced people to wrestle his style, and every time it's been great. The storytelling they did in the Zack Sabre match was fantastic. I'm excited. I am cautiously hoping that he wins this thing and heads to Wrestle Kingdom and becomes our next IWGP Heavyweight Champion.
I'm right there with you. And, last week, if you guys listened, I waxed poetically about every single one of these guys. I've been on the phones advising all day, so my voice is kind of thrashed. So I'm not going to take up as much time. And, you guys are probably missing Jeremy, and I know he's got thoughts here, but Zach's, I echo what Phil said. Zach's been fucking incredible. And some of these matches have been outstanding, especially I loved the Sonata and the Gabe Kidd match. 2 totally different matches, but both so good. Especially, last thing I'll say, him and Sonata did not have to be that good considering the fact that Zach was already in the tourney, or, you know, he's already in the finals, and he put a huge stamp on his trajectory there.
Got Dan Coffin checking in saying, hi, guys. His best Chris Jericho impression. But yeah, I thought Zach had a really entertaining week this past week. Like you mentioned, he had the Evil match, winning in 19 seconds. Just absolutely great. Of course, you had all the House of Torture shenanigans from the beginning where Evil drags him out. And, you know, normally Zach would have Kosei Fujita, who's injured, is going to be out, would dress up as Zach in previous years to kind of help Zach fight off the whole House of Torture stuff. So he didn't have Vegeta this time around. So Evil, you know, found him in the back, dragged him out. You thought that Evil was going to cheat to get the win, but Zach pulls the fast one, gets the win there. The Gabe Kid match, absolutely incredible stuff. All three of these guys have history going back to Rev Pro, and the story they told was just really great. And to me, it kind of felt like almost a Bret Hart Stone Cold moment for Gabe Kid. Being locked in the sleeper hole, giving a double bird, refusing to quit, having to pass out. Also, he didn't get the juice that Steve did in that matchup, but still kind of very symbolism right there of Gabe Kid, the passing out. And, there's a lot of people who want to see him turn babyface, and we kind of talked about it a couple weeks ago when we first kind of saw the pop that he was getting in some of those towns. And so it seems like it's kind of another step to kind of inch him towards turning babyface. And then, the Sonata match, Sonata and Zach always have great chemistry, great technical wizards there. And so that's always one of Sonata's best opponents there. So really great stuff. And going into the final night, I mean, Zach had already clinched first place in the block. I mean, he could have, not shown up and he would have still won the block. But, also he came out here to try and get the 2 more points. And I think a lot of people were thinking, so maybe Sonata's going to pull upset, get to 10. But at this point, it didn't really matter if Sonata was already mathematically eliminated. So I thought they made the right call here, just having Zach win, get more points, and be the really clear, definitive winner of A block. So that moving on, the Dragon, Shingo Takagi, he's clocking in 5-4 with 10 points, coming in second place in the A block going into the quarterfinals. So night 11, he lost to Sonata. Night 13, defeating Evil. And then night 15, defeating Jake Lee to clinch his spot into the quarterfinals.
Yeah, Shingo made me nervous here a little bit. Down the stretch, I just was like, the math wasn't mathing for me, and I wasn't sure if he was going to get through. I do think that aside from just across the board, I think him and Zach were the 2 top performers in the block, which is no surprise to probably anybody that's listening. But some of these wins, especially the Evil win I didn't love the Evil match, but him getting the W was awesome. And then beating, Jake Lee on the final night. Neither of those 2 matches were outstanding, but just the fact that he got through, it fucking finally happened. I guess I should listen more to Chris Samsa to kind of call this shit. But Phil, what were your thoughts on Shingo's week and his overall tournament?
Yeah, Shingo is one of my favorite wrestlers in the entire company. His matches are always really, really entertaining, really hard hitting. Every time he points straight at the screen and does the kata, I get excited every time. It's fantastic. I feel like he could easily win this tournament as well. I would really love to see him as champion again, because he kind of got shortchanged the first time around, because he was a great champion. It was just during the pandemic. But he may be a little bit nervous, like he made you nervous here, because I was like, what are some of these losses? You losing to Shota, losing to Callum early on. I was like, dude, what's happening here? I was a little bit scared, but I'm glad that he picked it up. Glad that he landed in the second spot.
Yeah, I was also nervous watching Shingo too, especially with some of those early losses, like you mentioned, some of those lower seeded guys in the block. But yeah, coming back here, 13-15, again, those important wins over Evil and Jake Lee. And again, some really solid matches here from Shingo. And like you mentioned, Josh, the Evil match, also there was a lot of how the torture. You had the run-ins, Dick Togo coming out, Kanemaru wearing the Bushi mask, and Charlton and Walker, you're like, what? Oh, why is Bushi turning on? Like, come on, guys. And then the real Bushi comes out. So yeah, you had the whole, LIJ versus House of Torture playbook kind of thing there. And Hiromu and Bushi were horrible help. They would get like hit once and be down for like And this man Shingo was fighting, 3-on-1 for the most part. But yeah, eventually they were able to get rid of Dick Togo and Kanemaru, and Shingo was able to get the win over Evil there. And then, the Jake Lee match. So Jake Lee was already mathematically eliminated coming into that match. So he was kind of trying to play spoiler for Shingo. But Shingo got the win there. Great closing stretch there where Jake Lee goes for the face break, hell of a kick in the corner. Shingo ducks, gets him up in a Death Valley driver, which then eventually leads into the Made in Japan the Last of the Dragon to get the win. So really good stuff here from Shingo. And so, a very important win over there of Jake Lee. That put him at 10 points. And that gives Shingo a lot of tiebreakers over other 10 points people here in the block. So Shingo is locked in for the semifinals in the A block, or the quarterfinals in the A block. And so he'll go on to face the next man we're going to talk about, Great Okan, also coming in 5-4 with 10 points. So night 11, Great Okan defeated Callum Newman. Then night 13, he defeated Sonata. And then night 15, closing it out with a huge win in the main event against the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, Tetsuya Naito. Phil, what are your thoughts on Great Okan?
If you would have told me coming into this tournament that this guy was going to be one of the MVPs of this tournament, I would have laughed in your face. But Great Okan is no longer a meme wrestler, guys. He is no longer a joke character. This guy can really wrestle. He's been having incredible matches. I think he's gotten the best out of all of his opponents so far. 5 straight wins to close the tournament, this half of the tournament at least. Fantastic. This guy, KOPW champion, beat the main champion of this company. Again, choke belt. The choke championship. He beat the main champion in Naito. And I think all the storytelling of it made me like it even more, because you could easily walked into this like, if this is WWE and this is like the 24/7 champion beating your world champion, I've been looking like, what the fuck are they doing? But the storytelling they did here was so good. And having Great Okan come into this match, targeting Naito's knee, wearing him down throughout the match, and just kind of lulling him sleep and getting a win. I thought that was smart storytelling. I thought the match itself was great. Kudos to Great Okan. I did not think we'd be here, but here we are.
Yeah, earlier in the tournament when he was taking some of those early losses, I just figured it makes sense. I never thought that they were at all telling a redemption story where he was going to start, losing and then, go on a Naito level comeback run down the stretch. I just Naito. Yeah, he out Naito. I thought he was just I thought he was just there to get 6 points and that be that. You know what I mean? I am wondering if we should have changed the logo from Okada, because think about it. Okada's dreams are coming true. The KOPW champion beats the IWGP champion, and that IWGP champion is Naito. How is that not more Okada's dream than anything else that's out there? Yeah, the dreams of Okada thriving in 2024 in New Japan. With all that being said, Samsa called this last week. I thought he was fucking crazy. It's pretty interesting booking. You can't take away from Okan how much he's been wrestling with a chip on his shoulder, that he has something to prove. So regardless of how things turn out from here on out, he really has been pretty elevated. And we did say during the preview before this G1 that if he doesn't get elevated now, he's done. It's never going to happen. He's about to get lapped by a second generation of guys. And I think they've done a good job getting him to where he needs to be. Who knows how much further he's going to go in this tournament, but this is a huge accomplishment for the guy.
Yeah, we had a comment here from Rambone saying TJP better watch out. Great Okan may want to take over the faction. I think Okan would definitely be a better leader for the group than TJP. But yeah, I'm just as surprised as you guys of Okan going on this 5-match run in the last week. And we know how the KOPW is positioned. As like you mentioned, Phil, it's been, that lower tier title. And they've had the whole eel eating contest and all this kind of shenanigan stuff that we've seen, especially during Great Okan's reign as a champion, more the gimmick kind of style stuff to do all the rural revitalization stuff. And so, Yeah, I was not expecting much of Okan here. I was thinking maybe he'd be lucky to get to 4 and 5, 8 points, and beyond from that. But yeah, making that rally comeback here, 5 straight wins in a row, and then the biggest one of them all, beating Tetsuya Naito on his final block night action. And they set everything up perfectly here with the final match being Naito Okan winning in. So very high stakes. The crowd was great. There was so much drama in this match. I mean, it's not going to be, a match of the year contender or anything, but there was so much drama. The crowd was really invested. And I think that the crowd really kind of latched on to Okan in this kind of 5-match streak. And we know a lot of cities in New Japan, they do like the underdog and they like to root for the underdog. And so there was a good amount of the crowd, I would say, that were in support of great Okan. And so closing sequence, Naito hits the Corriendo, that running Destino. Great Okan kicks out. And it looks like Naito's about to wrap things up. He goes for the regular Destino, but Okan catches him, hit the Sheep Killer, and then he picked him up for the Eliminator. And he did that same pin he does where he puts a hand on the face, tongue out, 1, 2, 3, beat Naito, and then you get the official announcement of Zack Shingo and Okan going through. Crowd goes wild. So great stuff here for great Okan. And so that's going to put Okan up against Shingo Takagi in the A Block quarterfinals. Winner of that will face Zack Sabre Jr.
One thing to point out, all 3 of these guys beat Naito in the block.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another thing too, maybe we shouldn't be so surprised about the fortunes of Okan turning around. Who's the president of New Japan Pro Wrestling right now?
The Ace.
Who used to be his young lion?
Oka.
I'm just saying, I don't know if that's a coincidence that Tanahashi takes over the company. Suddenly Okan has got gold around his waist. He's getting 10 points in the G1. I mean, I don't think that's a coincidence,
Maybe it's not. I definitely looked around, even with him winning 4 matches in a row, and I was like, wait a minute. The main event is Naito Okan? Okay. But go figure, great match. Crowd was into it, so guess I was wrong.
Yeah, definitely a great matchup here. Really cool to see Okan go through. Like you mentioned, Josh, we've been kind of questioning, what's next. We know Okan is actually going to get pushed. And I mean, we've been big fans of Okan going back to the Young Lion days. Oka, we watched a lot of those Young Lion matches and thought he was great in that time period. And we're looking forward to him coming back from excursion and just, it didn't go the way that we thought it was going to go for quite some time. And, he got that big win over Naito in New Japan Cup a couple years ago, and so we thought, about that was going to be the moment, but Naito got the win back pretty quickly, and he got shuffled off into KOPW land. So very cool to see him get the win here. So up next, Evil, 5-4, 10 points. Night 11, he lost to Zack Sabre Jr. Night 13, losing to Shingo Takagi, and Night 15, losing to Shota Umino. So Evil pulling the reverse Great Okan, losing his last 3 matches here.
Yeah, this was pretty predictable because, I mean, it just, not that he couldn't have made it through the block. I mean, it's definitely believable that Evil could have been one of the 3 finalists. I mean, he's gotten pretty close in the past. Former champion.
He was a semifinalist last year.
He was a semifinalist last year and everything like that. But the writing was on the wall. This guy went on such a strong tear through the block in the beginning. It was leading for such a long time that if you know Gato's booking, you're just like, this guy's about to have a cataclysmic fall from grace through the rest of this block. And that's exactly what happened. And what's funny too, as he started to lose more is when they started to rely more on the House of Torture tropes. The matches got worse. They got so much more, bombastic with all of the cheating and shenanigans. And I was praising this guy at the beginning of the tournament. For the first time in years, I was literally praising Evil and the quality of his matches. And maybe that's because he knew he was going over. I don't know. But as he started to lose, he's like, I gotta protect my heat, brother. So threw every fucking gimmick out there. And the match just got fucking abysmal down the stretch. And they became pretty awful. And took some. And the highlight for me was Zach beating this guy again. in 18. I mean, this is not the first time Zach has had this guy's number. It's happened so many. I called it last week, said that something like this would happen. Banana peel, and that was fucking great. So
Yeah. I was very worried because, I'm aware of Gato's booking style. So when he won a bunch of matches straight away, I was like, okay, he's not going to win the tournament. But those 10 points staring at me on the screen, I was like, why does Evil have 10 points, man? What is happening here? At one point, he was leading the block, and I was like, dude, do not let Evil come out of the A block. Come on, man. Do not do this to us. So I was very much assured. This is again part of the reason why Zach beating him in 19 seconds. I was like, yes, get this guy out of the top of this block, get him out of contention. And I had a joke going with SP3 from True Heel Heat because he was a big Shota guy. And I was like, well, Shota's mathematically out. All praise due to Shota Umino for ending this reign and getting this guy out of the tournament mathematically, because I just couldn't take it. Now, I do agree with you that the matches progressively got worse and worse, and this last match was overbooked to the nine. The most overbooked match you could possibly get. We got a sighting from President Tanahashi. We got every House of Torture guy you could throw out there. We got the Red Shoes appearance as the replacement ref. But all in the end, I love the story of it that Shota has been having to deal with Evil all year. They've been making his life miserable all year. And so it was fitting for the guy to finally hit the final nail in the coffin and kick this guy out of the tournament to be Shota Umino, especially if Shota Umino was not going to move on to the playoffs. I thought that was a great end of the tournament for Shota and the perfect way to get Evil out, really.
Yeah, like you mentioned,
Bullet Club guys making Shota Umino's life living hell. That's kind of fitting.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Phil. Umino has been feuding with Evil and House of Torture this whole year, and so it was a fitting end to have Umino, finally get that win over Evil and knock him out of the tournament. And we talked about this. I think you guys mentioned it last week. You talk about each guy kind of has their thing in the tournament, and so Umino's thing this year is going to be the guy that stopped Evil from going through. And, like you, Phil, and I was looking at the points and just seeing Evil, holding steady with 10 points. I was like, there's no way he's going to get through. And then I look back last year. I'm like, oh, crap. He got through last year. I'm like, they could do it again. But yeah, like you mentioned, they had all the antics out here. And, Tanahashi, one of his points, was talking about, less interference. And a lot of our listeners kind of caught onto that, and they're like, there could be some kind of storyline element here where Tanahashi comes in to finally stop this guy, and so we did get Tanahashi run in here, but Umino he hits the Evil towards the end there, and then hits him with the Death Rider 1, 2, 3, puts an end to Evil's tournament, and Umino ending with 8 points.
What the fuck kind of raggedy suit was that the Ace was wearing that night? Bro, it looked like, I don't know, linen or corduroy, and it was fucking falling, like it wasn't holding onto his ass. He didn't have a belt on. And I thought he was literally like his pants were gonna drop in the middle of the ring. And he was moving so fucking bad. Like, can you imagine what a Tanahashi run in this G1 would have looked like? Like, I know people are calling for him to have a final G1 run. I'm like, I don't know if we can do that.
I don't know, man. It's looking rough.
It's not going to be like when Nagata had his final run, or like Liger. It might not be like that, bro.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to see that, but yeah, halfway through all of these run-ins in that match, I was kind of wondering like, what's going on here. Then when Red Shoes finally came out, I was like, okay, I see the vision. Red Shoes is going to count it out, give his son the win. I like that. I like the story of it. The match was definitely way overbooked though.
Thank God for nepotism.
It was look at New Japan doing a bloodline match, man. Come on.
I saw someone say that Evil went to WrestleMania this past year and was like, I've got an idea.
Evil was inspired by the bloodline rule match. He's like, this is great.
Bro, I told you that when he used to do, remember when he was in LIJ and he used to do his promos, and I told you that he was definitely watching Rock promos, because he'd be like, Eva.
everything.
And he would pause and look up in the air. I'm like, dude, he's doing the Rock. Like,
Right. He used to wear the shades.
yeah, he would do the shades. He would turn. Like, most people weren't picking up on it, but that's what he was doing. And you know that he watched that Rock match and was like, oh, I got an idea.
What a funny wrestler, man. The tag match from a few nights ago with Naito and Shingo, where Naito were trying to fake them out and they kept doing the cigar thing at each other and faking each other like, no, I'm going to get out the ring. No, eventually I'll get out. Very, very funny stuff, man.
Yo, Phil Lindsey, real sicko, watching the tag undercard matches.
Man. Watching every night, man. Come on.
Bro, I did not. I might have watched the first or second night's tags, but like and now I'm looking at the schedule and I'm like, we're going into those final block nights. There's only gonna be like a couple matches. I'm like, do I watch those undercards? Are they gonna be important? I don't know. I guess I'm gonna have to look at the card. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I watched 0 undercard matches this year. I was like, I ain't got time for all that. Like, if something important happens, they'll fill me in. But I probably will watch the undercards.
Post it on on fucking Reddit or something.
Right, somebody in the Discord will somebody let me know. But yeah, I probably will watch the undercards going into the quarter and semifinals. They'll probably set stuff up for the fall, some title challenges, stuff like that. We'll probably get some angles. But speaking of title challenges, let's talk about Tetsuya Naito, the IWG.
Bring your ass to the stage. You bum, you loser.
Naito ending 5-4 of 10 points. So he defeated Umino on night 11. Night 13 defeated Callum Newman. And then night 15, like we mentioned, losing to the Great Okan in the main event there. Phil, what you thought about Naito these last couple nights?
I thought he came into the tournament with a lot to prove, coming out of that Forbidden Door match that a lot of people hated. So I was like, I don't know, man. That Mox match was not good. What is this tournament going to look like for Naito? And for those first 3 matches or so, it was looking a little rocky. I was like, okay, he's losing a lot. These Destinos that he's trying to hit are looking very ugly, and it's just like, what's happening here? But the more the tournament went on and him using the Destinos and then rolling that into the roll up to win the matches, I thought that was smart. He did a very Naito run of coming out of those losses and winning a bunch straight. I cackled at him beating all of these young guys that people thought were up and comers. Callum coming straight into the tournament and having a good run, and Naito's like, nope, just gonna beat that guy too. All you guys think Shoto's gonna win this tournament? Nope, gonna beat that guy too. I thought all of that was very funny, but he went on to have some very good matches, I thought, towards the end of this tournament.
Yeah, Rainbow saying his matches overall been pretty good compared to earlier this year. I think he needs to change finishers. And yeah, the Destino spots were very rough for Naito this whole tournament. I'm glad there was a little pivot there where you mentioned, Phil, he was going into the schoolboy roll-up. Not schoolboy, but the roll-up from the Destino.
Even those looked rough. I don't know if this was a shoot turned to work or if this was a work turned shoot. I don't know if this was art imitating life. And, I'm not too bold to proclaim that I might be worked here, but I might not. Like, it's really hard to tell. Is he just a high level 4D chess worker and he's just working in his bad knees into his stories? Or is this just all coming to fruition and we're watching a man fall apart in front of our eyes? I really cannot tell. But, putting all that aside, I thought Naito had a pretty good run through the tournament. It's hard to deny the, caliber of match that he's having, which isn't as high as it was, say, in like 2016, but still pretty high. At the same time, in kayfabe, very interesting that the champion lost 3 times in the block, tied with, the other 2 guys that got through, but it isn't getting through. That kind of breaks my theory that I had earlier, was that there's no way Naito doesn't get to the top 3. And, I had a whole scenario laid out, what I thought was going to transpire from there, but all 3 of those guys beat him. And now it's like an open field and kind of funny. I was surprised that Umino lost to Naito. I was surprised that Umino wasn't one of the guys in the finals. But other than that, I think a lot of people have been kind of harsh on Naito's because, he's not hitting the Destinos as cleanly as he used to. And again, I don't know if it's a fucking work or if it's a shoot or if it's a hybrid. I don't know. But I really loved those first 2-night matches that he had with Zach and Shingo, and a lot of people shit on them, and I still maintain that those were some of the best matches of the tournament. I don't care what, a botched Destino is not going to bring down the entirety of a match for me. But him and Okan, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of snoozing a little bit during that one. Shining Wizard time, baby. Thanks, Rambone. But I was shocked that Okan got the win. I started to come around on the idea once Samsa started kind of leaning into it, and he's like Nostradamus with this shit, but still hard for me to believe. And hats off to Naito, the most losingest fucking champion in a G1 in a long ass time,
Still incredibly over. People just don't care. He's Teflon at this point. Yeah. Maybe this is all strategic work so that when he gets to Wrestle Kingdom and everybody's expecting them to hit one of these ugly Destinos again, he finally hits the Stardust Press and wins the match.
Yo.
And his knees blow up. His knees turn to dust too.
We get the "my dad's a heel wrestler" moment. This man just crumbles.
Bro, we're gonna get there, but tell me that Goto is not living out the real life of "my dad is a heel wrestler" right now.
Yeah, except it's my dad's a babyface.
My dad's a babyface. This guy's little kids by ringside. He needs to come out with the cockroach mask on.
Yeah, we'll get to Goto in the B block, but yeah, I thought Naito was fine these last few nights up here, and the Umino match. Once Umino lost there, I was like, man, I think it's not looking good for him advancing, and then. The Callum Newman match was so short, just shy under 6 minutes. And we'll talk about Callum in a second, but I feel like, they didn't really benefit him with some of the short matches he had in this tournament. And he really didn't get a chance to fully show what he can do, but he made the most of his minutes there. He attacked Naito right from the bell, big dive on him, and, tried to beat Naito quickly, but Naito got the win there. And then we talked about the Okan match. And so, yeah, Naito is officially eliminated from the tournament, and I won't say that I thought this coming, but I was very questionable about, all right, are you going to have the champion go into the quarters and semifinals to potentially have a third matchup down the line with somebody like Zach and Shingo? And if you do that for Wrestle Kingdom, are you really going to do that so many matches for your Wrestle Kingdom main event? And I was kind of questioning, are they actually going to do that, how that's going to work out? And Josh, you did a good scenario of making it work out to where he wouldn't face somebody 3 times and still get into the quarterfinals. But yeah, Naito out here. We did have a couple questions come in. That dude named Menace says, does Tetsuya get to Wrestle Kingdom? Because he is looking awful.
Don't get work, brother.
I think he's going to make it to Wrestle Kingdom. I think if Zach wins, I think Zach versus Naito in the main event makes a lot of sense story-wise. I see no reason why Naito wouldn't make it to the main event. I don't think you picked Naito to be the guy that beat Mox, and you didn't have plans for the rest of the year for him.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people try to galaxy brain and do all kind of crazy scenarios and be like, well, yeah, he's gonna lose in the fall, and then it's gonna be something different at the Dome, in which. That's all cool, but, what is that money match? And you pointed this out last week, Josh, when Damon was kind of saying that. It's like, all right, well, if he's losing the belt in the fall or the winter, what is that Tokyo Dome main event that you do that does not involve Tetsuya Naito? And then what does Naito do at the Dome? Because you still have to figure him in. So are you going to do some kind of dream match for him? And then what is the title match that you do? And so...
Yeah, unless you're bringing in Bill Goldberg, Brock Lesnar, The Rock, or John Cena, I don't know who you would have him drop the belt to that would make sense financially. Who's this big name you're gonna Okada coming back to beat him for the belt to headline Wrestle Kingdom? Is Kenny Omega coming back to beat him for the belt? What are we doing? Who's this draw that he's gonna drop the belt to prior to Wrestle Kingdom so that we can do business. They don't exist.
Yeah. No, because if that was the case, then why did you have him beat Mox? I mean, if that was the case, Mox could have held the belt all the way into January.
Oh, people would be so
People would have been furious. But that's what I'm saying. If you're not in it for the long run with Naito at this point, why would you do that?
right.
Yeah, so yeah, they could have had Mox lose in the fall too to whoever they want to win. So yeah, there's definitely some kind of questions on Naito losing there. So yeah, I do think he will make it to the Dome, and he's gonna have a tough fall though. It looks like because he's 4 losses overall in tournament. That could be a lot of title challenges. There's big shows in September, October, and November. So he's probably defending at least 2 or 3 times before we get to the Dome.
One thing too to kind of recall is like when New Japan was in their quote unquote dark days, that's when they used to hotshot the belt, change it a lot prior to Wrestle Kingdom. And, under Gato's regime, that's just something that doesn't happen too often. The last time the champion dropped the belt prior to Wrestle Kingdom was like when it was AJ Styles. And you knew AJ wasn't going to the Dome with the belt. And the only reason he dropped it was so that we could get to Tanahashi Okada again, which everybody knew was the big money match. But there is no big money match at this point in time in 2024 in New Japan, unless Tetsuya Naito's attached to it, like point blank. So he's not dropping that belt.
Yeah. We had a question from Def Triangle 720. With Shota out with the G1, what should be his next direction in the next couple of months? He may need a month or 2 to heal up from his back injury, especially if he may have an important Dome match at Wrestle Kingdom 19.
I don't know, bro. I'm bearish on Shota Umino right now.
Yeah, things are not looking great for Umino right now. We'll talk about him here in a little bit, his week, but yeah, I don't know where you go with him.
Yeah, I hope he takes some time off because he was looking a little bit hampered by that back injury in the tournament. Just seems like he just needs some time off.
Yeah.
Take some time, do some soul searching, look inward, figure out if you even want to be doing this shit.
Well, let's talk about the smart bastard Jake Lee. Ends his first G1 4-5 with 8 points.
I think you mean Joke Lee. It's a joke.
Well, he defeated Gabe Kidd on night 11 by count out. Night 13 defeating Umino, and then like we mentioned on the last night, night 15 losing to Shingo Takagi.
I'm just glad we don't have to live with this dude in the playoffs. That would have sucked. The Gabe Kidd match was incredible, but when you wrestle Gabe Kidd and he brings that passion, you just got to show that you got balls and just go ham with him. And the fact that thing went sub 5 minutes, that was right up my alley. But other than that, I couldn't stomach. Give me an evil House of Torture shenanigans filled laden match all day over what we saw with Jake Lee, and that's across the board. You can miss me with the Jake Lee. For everybody for all of these years that ate shit because they were criticizing his All Japan and his Noah runs, like they have been vindicated because he got on the big stage and he laid a goose egg. This man should have never been in this tournament. We missed out on a Taichi. We missed out on a Ishii. We missed out on a Yoshihashi because we had to make room for Jake Lee. This man was the drizzling shit, a total complete dumpster fire. I hope that the rumors that he is still part of Noah and is not actually signed to New Japan come to fruition, because I don't want to see this man on my screen ever again. Go back to the Shindies. I don't know how the fuck did we wind up with Jake Lee and not like Nakajima. How is that possible? We got the wrong Triple Crown champion.
What do you think about Jake Lee, Phil?
I honestly watched the Jake Lee matches, and every time I got online afterwards, I would see Meltzer giving these things the lowest ratings of the week. And I'm just like, these matches aren't great, but I don't think they're this bad. I mean, especially the way people were talking about them. I was like, maybe it's just me. I don't think these matches were great, but again, I don't think that they were that bad. Gabe Kidd pulled a tremendous match out of him, like you said, but I think that was like Gabe Kidd's matches across the board. He forces you to wrestle his style of match. He brings a lot of energy and passion with him. That was easily one of my favorite matches of the tournament. Easily Jake Lee's best match. But yeah, Jake, it's weird because I do think like his first match, him getting that surprise win, getting the face buster at the end, looked good. But some of these other matches, they went on a little bit too long, or they were a bit too plotting. I think some of the matches came together by the end, but it just seems like maybe he's just not used to working with this crop of opponents. Maybe they haven't figured out what to do with him. I do think he fits with the War Dogs, but I don't know, man. I don't know what the future of Jake Lee with this company is.
Yeah, hopefully it's not a long one, because I'm kind of in the camp with Josh here. Like, I did not enjoy watching this man any night. I mean, the Gabe Kidd match, that was a really good match, and there was a lot of brawling. Before the match, he came out here, he thought it was gonna be sweet. He brought the bear out, thought they were gonna do the old school kind of Bullet Club, too sweet, you pin me, I pin you kind of thing. Gabe Kidd was like, nah, son, we're gonna run it. And so yeah, they brawled, and that was an awesome brawling, Gabe Kidd match there. And so that's probably Jake Lee's best match of the whole tournament. But besides that, yeah, a lot of him is very kind of slow and plotting, and I don't know, yeah, if he just doesn't know what the New Japan House style or what it is, but yeah, his performances were just not compelling at all, and it's kind of lacked like drive and emotion. I think probably the most emotion he got was at that Gabe Kidd match and then the Shingo match, because had Shingo lost, he would have been out, and so the crowd was really behind Shingo on that night, wanting to see him beat Jake Lee and get the win there. But then outside of that, it was just kind of like pretty flat reactions for him, and so yeah, ends here with 8 points. He's out, and I totally agree with you, Josh. He didn't get this monster push. He ended with 8 points. You're trying to tell me Yoshihashi wouldn't have ended with 8 points? You could have easily had Taichi.
Could have brought Jack back.
Yeah, there's so many people. I mean, there's other young lines you could have thrown in here, like, bring my man Oscar Loibe back from the UK, throw him. Like, there's so many people that you could have thrown in here, other domestic Japanese guys that are sure dying to get in G1. There's so many guys. If you wanted to pick a Noah guy, why not like Kitamiya or Manabu Soya or, another one of these guys that are not main eventers in Noah, but could go and then get 8 points and would have given us far better matchups.
Masato Tanaka's still out there. Fujinami. Fujiwara. They all would have been better than this man.
Where's Suzuki at? Like, I know he's not really working with the company.
Suzuki could have put Tiger Mask in there. Liger could have put the suit back on. All these guys, any one of them,
bro. Where was Nakanishi at?
Yeah, Nakanishi could have come back. Monster Morning, give him his last G1 run.
Bro, my man Kojima, man.
Kojima hasn't had his fucking final run. I guess he did, but we didn't know about it.
Oh man.
Fuck you, Jake Lee.
Well, moving on. Sonata, leader of Just Five Guys, 4 wins and 5 losses, ending with 8 points. So night 11, he defeated Shingo. Night 13, losing to Great Okan. Night 15, losing to Zack Sabre Jr. Phil, what are your thoughts about Sonata?
What a very odd tournament run for a guy that was just IWGP heavyweight champion. Some of these losses, I was just kind of stunned, like, okay, he's gonna lose. Okay, cool. And I thought that this was gonna turn around and tell some kind of story. I thought by the end he was gonna make some kind of run, and no, he just ended up losing. Even in the last match on night 15, I thought at least, hey, he's kind of wrestling for something. Maybe mathematically he can kind of eke his way into the playoffs. Nope, he just lost. I was like, okay. But some of the matches were strong. The guys that he does have good chemistry with, like Zach, great match. I thought he had strong matches with some of the other guys in this field as well. It's just, I just can't quite figure out what they're doing with post-championship Sonata. Like, what is the move with him?
I've heard some stuff. We'll see.
Because I mean, currently he's not even my favorite guy in his group anymore, and I wasn't a Just Five Guys fan at all. But I feel like currently Yuya Uemura had a much better tournament, and he's the much more interesting wrestler at this point.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at his cage match right here, and it looks like the two matches that stood out for most people were the Zack Sabre match and the Shingo match. Oh, Dave gave it the Shingo match 4 3/4. I don't even know why. I don't really barely remember that match.
It was good.
Yeah, it was a good main event. I didn't go 4 3/4. I think I was more like 4 1/4, but it was a great main event of that night.
Man, I'm in the doldrums of G1 fatigue. Too much good wrestling, but he had some other no, that's about it. Those are the two best matches pretty much from what I'm seeing as far as like reception go. But yeah, I don't have much more to say about Sonata. I was relieved when I read the reports coming from Chris and Jeremy Sexton. That's his name, right? Jeremy Sexton?
Yeah.
Yeah, when they said that him and freaking Jake Lee, that they were pretty much even though they like still could tie for points if they won the last two nights, there was no scenario where they were getting through to those final rounds. So that was comforting. But that last match he had with Sonata or with ZSJ, like those two guys, for whatever reason, they just have like incredible charisma and chemistry.
Yeah, that was a great matchup. And yeah, before I saw the Samsa and Sexton report, I was kind of doing the math. I was like, oh, well, they're probably going to find a way to get Sonata through, win the last night, and with 10 points, and then kind of tiebreakers get up there. But then, yeah, Chris and Jeremy Sexton did the math, and Sonata was already mathematically eliminated going in. So even if he had beaten Sabre, he still wouldn't have advanced. So, yeah, I guess kind of weird booking for a guy who went undefeated in his block last year, was the IWGP, the longest reigning IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. They don't even forget that on commentary. So yeah, it's like this guy was so dominant last year, and now obviously he's coming off the bicep injury. He had like another like illness earlier this year too, and so yeah, he's kind of feels like he's in limbo right now, and who knows, like there might be some faction shakeup coming up later in the year, next year, but as of right now, the path doesn't really seem clear for what you do with Sonata going forward.
Nothing.
Take him with Jake Lee.
He got his title run.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Gabe Kidd, the NJPW Strong Open Weight Champion. So on night 11, Gabe defeated, he lost to Jake Lee at night 13, losing to Zack Sabre, and then night 15, ending with a win over Callum Newman to end 4-5 with 8 points.
Phil, what were your thoughts on who are we talking about?
Gabe Kidd.
Gabe Kidd.
I think it was phenomenal, man. I think Gabe Kidd continues to be my favorite member of this iteration of Bullet Club. He's just got it, man. He's got the presence on television. He's got the social media game. His matches are fun. They're unique. It doesn't feel like anybody else in the group wrestles like he does. And like I said earlier, he managed to, everybody he got in there with, forced them to wrestle his style of matches, and it was better because of it. I thought that the tournament did a lot of benefit for him. He didn't move on to the playoffs, but I think that he had a memorable G1 run.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about guys making a name for themselves in this tournament, oftentimes we can rely on the booking to tell us who is or isn't important. For instance, we just talked about Sonata last year. 7-0, 14 points, one of the best undefeated streaks in a G1, but very few people coming out of that talking about Gabe raised his stock more than anyone, in my opinion, is what Rainbow and Slam Pig did. And he's taking the words right out of my mouth. We can look at like Okan and praise him all day. We can look at Shingo and those two guys kind of getting back to, Shingo getting back to where he was in the past, and Okan getting elevated, and taking nothing away from their performances and everything like that, because they definitely got elevated. But I don't know if anybody in this block, or perhaps the tournament, arguably elevated themselves in the minds of fans, especially here in the West. But if you listen to the reception of the crowds there, he seems to have reached a new level, which is what the G1 is all about. And sure, certainly at the end of the day, 4-5, that's not necessarily a record to write home about, although he did tie most of the guys that were like the next tier down from reaching the playoffs. He had incredible matches, such a wide variety of style of matches. And yeah, like what Phil said, it is absolutely true. He made everybody wrestle his style, but they weren't a carbon copy of himself every night. He had something different to offer, whether that was crazy brawls through the crowd, whether that was like, the never style match, a tough man match, trying to prove yourself in the middle of the ring, brawling, just all sorts of shit. And, that moment with Shingo where they teased the potential face turn just for him to turn around and get his heat back, and him dropping people on their heads and talking shit this entire tournament. And that match with Zach was something else. Gabe has just kind of gotten to another level, and he sort of has always had that potential that the guys from the LA dojo that we've always talked about. Like, we always know that all these guys have the potential to get somewhere, but we never see it happen. Like, we've been waiting and waiting all these years, and it just doesn't happen. And finally we're at a point where it feels like this dude's about to break through. And there's some people that don't like it, but it doesn't fucking matter if they like it, because it's happening. Listen to the reception this guy's getting. Like, they fucking love him over there.
What'd you think about when you said LA Dojo? It immediately made me think of him staring straight in the camera and go, "Where's Shibata? Where's the camera? Where's Shibata?" And then goes into the slap exchange. I was like, "Oh man, I'm sure some people are not gonna like that."
Who did he do he did the sit down cross-legged slap exchange? That was with Zach. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, you kind of pointed this out earlier, Jeremy, and it's an apt comparison. Who's more, the technical marvel in today's day and age in New Japan other than Zach? Like, that's a modern day Bret Hart. And the comparisons between Stone Cold and Gabe Kidd are very apparent. And I thought those guys had incredible chemistry. And I loved that match. And I want to see them run it back again. And I think Gabe, I can't sit here and say like he's going to be the top gaijin, he's going to be world champion. I don't know that, but he's going to be a star, and he's got a bright future. And he's showing them that he's got the goods.
Yeah, I think, Gabe Kidd, a person, especially going back to the New Japan Strong weekly TV days, Gabe Kidd's a guy where, like, man, he's definitely a player. You go back to some of those matches he had with, like, Eddie Kingston, before when he was still babyface, and then some of, like, the Narita matches in Strong. It's a lot of the guys he faced on that Strong brand, Tom Lawler. There's a lot of good stuff that he was doing, pre-Bullet Club, and then, joining Bullet Club, like, all right, here's the chance for him to get the push, and, we've been waiting, and, like, now is the time, like, everything is just kind of clicking for him right now, and just the way the crowd reacted from the opening nights to all the way to this final night in the tournament, like, he's getting over, he kind of promo, I think it was today or yesterday, talking about, you got to bring the passion. I bring the passion. It doesn't matter about your wrist locks or your flips. Like, I bring the passion. And that's exactly what he did. Like, every night, there was just passion, drive, hard hitting, great wrestling, great storytelling, great promos. Like, he went, I think, above and beyond to push himself, get himself over. And I don't know if I wouldn't say the company's against him, but he's definitely, like, outpacing the push that they are where they have him at. And so I think it's going to be one of those situations where it's like, I don't know what the fall or winter looks like, but if they don't have him in big plans, they need to reevaluate and think of what they're going to do with Gabe going into the end of the year and going into Wrestle Kingdom season.
Yeah, great tournament. Then in the middle of all of this, called out Kenny Omega on Twitter, called out Max on Twitter, and I thought he got good exchanges out of both of those. Now he's trending way upward at this point.
Yeah, and so New Japan doesn't want to make him a star. We've seen what happens. Yeah, I'm sure Tony Khan, once his TV deal gets announced, will open up the checkbook and
if
if New Japan won't push him, I'm sure that Gabe will find a promotion that will pay and push him to the level he deserves. So last two guys here in A block, second to last, the Roughneck Shota Umino coming in 4-5, 8 points. Night 11 losing to Naito. Night 13 losing to Jake Lee, and then night 15 getting some revenge, like we talked about, beating Evil, knocking Evil out of contention. What do you think about Roughneck, Phil?
I thought that this was I thought he was going to be one of the fixtures in this tournament based off the way this year started. I won't say that it wasn't a great tournament because he showed flashes of greatness. I think that he had matches where he looked great. I think the Gabe Kidd match he was really, really good in, but that was again Gabe Kidd forcing this guy to wrestle his style. There are bits of that match where I was like, is this a real fight? What's going on? They were at bits of this thing slapping the ever-loving shit out of each other, and it was great. But I don't know if it's just a back injury, but some of these matches I was like, what's going on? Like he just feels like he's going through the paces. If you're going to do the hidden blade and make it a part of your moveset, you really got to lay that in and put some snap on it like Will does. Otherwise, it just doesn't feel as effective. And there are a few times where he did it where I was like, I get where he's going for. Execution wasn't as great. But I do like the story that they ended the tournament with him. I think that was the best utilization of him that they could have done. I still am not I'm not low on him. I see the potential of him. I see that he can be a future ace of this company. I don't think that this tournament will convince people that did not see that in him. But I don't think it was a bad tournament for him. I just think he had a lot working up against him.
Yeah, I think that his health is certainly an obstacle that played a role in his performance in the tournament and everything like that. But like you mentioned, it did kind of seem like he was going through the motions at certain iterations of the tournament. I didn't think he necessarily closed the tournament the strongest he possibly could. One of the big blown spots for me was the opportunity to have a match with Naito. And even though the match was structured to make him look strong, ultimately, yeah, he did lose, but I don't think they made the most of that opportunity. He didn't look like a guy that should be challenging for the top title or the top spot anytime in the near future. And one thing I don't want to put all of the criticism on him. One thing that I've, when we've talked with Chris and he's been on the show, he talks about how, each guy gets a thing, and I don't know if I personally always subscribe to that notion, although I think there are plenty of instances that you can point to where people have had standout moments. In the past, there have been plenty of times where guys didn't have a thing. And what I mean by that is I think that there is too much parity-based booking in this tournament where we're at a transitionary point where we're hoping that some of these younger guys were given the ball to run with it. And they certainly were given, like some of them were given the opportunity and seized the moment. But at the end of the day, you weren't putting the jetpack on any one particular individual. It wasn't like the booking was too unlike what happened in the A block last year, where everybody kind of ended in a very similar spot. Thereby, you're not really pushing anybody too far forward. And my dog is freaking out, so I'll kind of leave it at that. But I was hoping that one of these Reiwa guys would kind of get the rub a little bit more. And I don't think that they have committed to any one particular individual enough through this tournament.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of different stuff going on. I think you guys mentioned obviously the health and the injuries, and a lot of people kind of pointed out him having some boo-boo face coming into some of these matches. So I don't know if there was like a lack of motivation there because he knew he wasn't winning, and so maybe that was part of the issue. And so I don't know. There's definitely a lot of factors that you can point to why maybe he didn't have the best tournament. He could have had injuries, lack of motivation. There's lots of things there, but I'm not low on him. I do think that there's something there with him, but he just needs to find it. And I know that you guys last week talked about, maybe they're trying to set him up for a Naito moment where he goes to Mexico and goes on excursion and totally changes the gimmick and comes back as something new. And I guess they could do that. But yeah, I just think that
wasn't that technically the excursion to UK? Wasn't that what that was supposed to be?
Well, yeah, I mean, the UK excursion was his first real excursion from Young Lionhood, but they could pull that Naito where Naito had that second trip to Mexico after he was already established as Stardust Genius. So maybe they're going to do something like that and send him somewhere different and to really kind of change the character. But yeah, there's something missing there. Like you mentioned, Phil, a lot of the stuff he does, it just doesn't always lock in. And the weird thing is also when he's in there with guys, I feel like when he's in there with Shingo and he's in there with a Will Ospreay or Zack Sabre, I feel like he kind of turns it on and he can hang with those guys. But then when he's in matches where he's up against a Jake Lee, an Evil, a hurt Naito, he's not bringing that intensity. He's not kind of trying to elevate the match. He's just kind of there, just kind of middling around with those guys. And so I think one of the things for him, he needs to kind of learn to be able to have great matches with everybody, not just the top guys. And then we've talked about the look as well. I just think there's a lot of he has a lot of stuff kind of there, but I think there's just some stuff that needs to be moved around, shaked around, and to really kind of get him to the next level.
Yeah, listen, go away, grow your hair back out, put the Death Rider jacket on. Just come on, man. Get rid of all of the white and the pink. Just switch up the look, man. Vary it up.
Yeah, I think the look. There's been a lot of mixed messages with that. I've said from the beginning, if you're gonna lean into the shooter thing, then yeah, you need to go the more Moxley look. You're coming out of the crowd. You're being called shooter. Lean more into the whole the black kind of Death Rider look. But they're trying to combine the Mox stuff with a Tanahashi look, of kind of a Naito fan connection. They're trying to throw all this stuff together, and it's just not working. And yeah, he just needs to. Yeah, he should have never cut his hair. And I made a point of this a couple weeks ago. If you look at the renders for the match graphics, they're all with him with long hair. Everybody else has new renders except him. Even the company knows he shouldn't have cut his hair. There needs to be a poster back there. That's Rocky. I know you listen, Rocky. Put a poster back there that says, "Do not cut your hair." When Oiwa comes back, I do not even think about cutting that man's mullet. Nobody else needs to cut the hair. Umino, he got messed up. Uemura, he got messed up. No more cutting hair.
I think it worked for Umura at this point because it's just worked out at this point. But yeah, it's kind of weird too because they built all of the story around him carrying out the Death Rider jacket all this time. And so I thought the big payoff for this was going to be him eventually wearing the jacket full time. And he didn't. I don't know why they did that.
See, I've always been the opposite. I've always thought that he needed to relinquish the jacket, become his own man, and that we would see him retire the jacket after defeating Jon Moxley. And so I'm still almost kind of holding on to the idea that we're on track for a potential Umino versus Jon Moxley match at Wrestle Kingdom. Of course, who the fuck knows what's going on with Jon Moxley at this point in time?
Yeah, I mean,
in fucking forever.
Yeah, I thought the match she had with Mox earlier this year was good.
We loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was a great match.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, I really thought that he was, and part of this is sour grapes because I didn't have a bracket, but it did bust my predictions. I really thought that he was going to I thought he was going to be in that Okan spot. He was going to be up there.
Yeah.
and Zach. And I'm happy for Okan. Don't get me wrong whatsoever. But for them to have kind of proclaimed this guy as like a future ace, and they haven't said that outright, but like the marketing has kind of told us that, the slotting, the matches that they've given him. And I don't know if they're cooling on him just a bit. Hard to say. It's too early to call. And I mean, this isn't like us, waving the white flag and giving up on the guy, but they're at a pivotal moment where they need to kind of shift and figure something out, because what they're doing at the current moment is just not working. And that was very evident in this tournament. And where he ended kind of tells us how they see him at this current point in time.
Yeah. We had a couple questions here. At Anwar Starwin on Twitter said, when will Shooter stop cosplaying his heroes and become his own man?
And I feel like we kind of answer that, to be honest. But if you guys have any thoughts.
Yeah, I think that that's part of it. I think that they really want us to see him as the next up and coming like blend of Naito and Tanahashi. But it's a lot of tell and not show in a good and not the best way with him. And I think that's part of what's hurting him. I mean, you come straight out the gate and call him one of the new Three Musketeers, and I think that immediately put a lot of high expectations on him, unfairly in some ways. And I don't think they've done anything with him booking wise that's justified it quite yet.
He should have come out like Hashimoto with side chops and start shoot kicking people.
Yeah, I don't think the booking's done him any favors either. He's been kind of stuck in a undercard feud with House of Torture this whole year. He hasn't. I mean, he had the Moxley Tile Challenge, but I mean, that's probably the highlight of his year. Everything else has kind of been kind of that undercard kind of stuff there, struggling to beat Ren and Rita throughout the year. So yeah, I think there's so much that the booking, the look, the matches, like there's just so much that's going wrong for him. And so yeah, there's definitely needs to be, I think, a change in booking, and also from him too. Like he needs to kind of find himself as well. And I think I kind of feel like he's just kind of going with what they give him and not trying to make it his own. Less Commission 7252 says, what is next for Shota for the rest of the year heading to Wrestle Kingdom? I think Shota needs to become cool down for the remainder of the year and either be in the Rambo Rumble or in the tag match like he was earlier this year, unless one of the guys he defeated like Shingo or Zack ends up winning the G1. He doesn't need a big singles match or a championship match for the big show next year. It feels like he's having the 2012 John Cena story where he lost to The Rock at Mania and then lost every major match for the remainder of that year.
Yeah, I think that would be a mistake to not give him a singles match, because I think that would further justify some people feeling like the company's cooled on him and that they don't have anything for him. If this guy goes into Wrestle Kingdom with nothing, that's going to be a disaster for him.
Yeah, I think that would hurt him a lot.
Yeah, I don't want to misquote it, but I saw a post on Twitter, and
one of those apps.
I don't know if you know this, Phil. I'm not like the most tech savvy individual. Jeremy handles most of our shit. So, but I saw someone put a post out and they said they had a theory, and I think it was a kind of controversial theory and upset some people, but they said that if you book somebody with they're the future gimmick and more than say like 2 or 3 years passes, then at that point, the gimmick has already like played itself out. Like,
yeah,
what are you going to do? What's coming after that? If you're calling them the future and then 2 or 3 years passes and they haven't risen up to take their spot, then they're Lex Luger, they're, Diesel, they're Sid Vicious. They're a guy that had all this potential in the world. He was the next big thing, but they never got to that Brock Lesnar or Kurt Angle level or Stone Cold Steve Austin. They didn't ascend, they hit a glass ceiling. And I feel like it might still be a little too early, but we're not that far off. I mean, when did Umino come back from excursion? Are we in his second year right now?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I mean, they just started the Three Musketeers stuff.
That was
not
a whole year ago.
Not too long ago. So I don't think we're getting close, but
they called them the Three Musketeers a year ago, right before the G1. and he had already returned from excursion in November of the previous year. So we're coming up on 2 years. We're not that far from 3 years. You kind of have to pull the trigger on a guy and throw him in the deep end and decide and either shit or get off the pot and decide, like, you know, because I mean, 3 years becomes 5 years. That's half a decade. And then how many Wrestle Kingdom main events do we got left in them after that point? You know what I mean? Like, this business is, it's cruel. And the guy's already got a major injury at this point. And, you know, he's young, so he'll probably recoup, but fuck, we got to go. Now's the time. We got to go.
Yeah, that's why I said if you don't give him a singles match at Wrestle Kingdom, I think that's a disaster. You can't afford to put him in the Rumble. I think that would be a terrible decision.
Oh, that'd kill him.
Yeah. He would be like pretty much like geek level at that point.
Put him in the 6-man gauntlet instead.
Yeah, you'd be officially dooming him to basically Drew's first run with WWE, where you made him the chosen one, and then he ended up in 3MB. Like, don't do that to him, man. Don't do this.
I'm not gonna lie. I always really loved 3MB for, I don't know why. I fucking love them though.
Yeah. Well, one more guy here in the A block, the Prince of Pace, Callum Newman, ending his first G1 2-7. 4 points. Night 11, falling the Great Okan. Night 13, losing to Tetsuya Naito. And night 15, losing to Gabe Kidd.
I thought he was impressive to start the tournament. Came out right out the gate, upset Shoto in the first match. Got a big win over Shingo. I thought he's looked pretty good in most of his matches. I just think towards the middle of the tournament moving forward, it became apparent right away, okay, we were really building him up to look impressive just to have him take some pretty big losses to the guys that we really want to push forward. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I wish he would have gotten a little bit more in the tournament, but I thought he looked good in the matches that he was supposed to look good in. I thought that he looked strong throughout. Go figure. With everything we said about Shota, and Shota came away with 8 points, I thought that a lot of times Callum looked better.
Yeah.
I learned this week that there is a quite sizable segment of the fan base that don't like Callum Newman, which I didn't know.
I also saw this because
I was unaware. I'm not like plugged in to the different groups of New Japan like fandom here in the West, like some other people are probably. So I get spared from the consensus views on people, but yeah, people don't like Newman, and I don't know, bro. He's awesome.
I like him.
He's really good. And I understand that there's some criticisms to be had. Rainbow and Slam Pig says the same people who pretend Will Ospreay wasn't good. Yeah,
I mean, if you don't like Will Ospreay, probably won't like this guy because a lot of very similarities in his game.
Yeah.
I think there are valid criticisms to be had at the same time, and I kind of echoed the sentiment all throughout the tournament. The melding of development and learning while also getting the best performance out of him that they could. So it's a melding of those two things. Like, you still want him to perform at a certain level, but they've only given him enough time to I'll be honest, I don't think that he has it in him just yet right now to go out there and do the 25-minute match with Zack Sabre and Shingo. You know what I mean? That's why they did the 11-minute match, because that's where he's at right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but I thought Callum had a really good tournament. And yeah, even though he didn't have, the 20-minute classics, I felt like he maximized the minutes he have. A lot of times he would start off hot, big dive. He showed a lot of the cool athleticism that he can do. And so I did wish he would have gotten a little bit more time in some of his matches. That last match there with Naito was, 6 minutes. Even the Gabe Kidd match was only, 6 minutes, 52 seconds. And so I feel like he's really good in the ring. I think people don't really know how good he is and just how experienced he is. And I would love to see him get more time and kind of be, into a feud where he can really sink his teeth and kind of have more of a personal feud and have some bigger matchups. But yeah, I think that he's a guy that they need to continue kind of on this track and continue to push. I was a little surprised that he's only ending with 4 points. You look at his counterpart, Bolton Oleg in the B block, we'll talk about, who's ending with 8 points. I would have loved to see Callum get a few more points on the board. I thought he was going to, beat Gabe Kinnan last night because both of them were out, and you could have had both of them end at 6. But I get why Gabe needed to win, but yeah, I thought Callum looked really good in this tournament, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Callum's going to do the rest of the year. Well, let's jump over to the B block, and guys, it's really messy in the B block. You can go to sportprowrestling.com. Our friend Chris Samsa, he has this whole big chart mapped out of all the scenarios. If this guy wins, then what happens here? But yeah, there's a potential for like 7-way ties, 5-way tie, 3-way unbreakable ties. It's really muddied up here. But let's talk about.
But isn't it like pretty likely that we're not going to get an unbreakable tie scenario? So you can throw that out the window entirely, and doesn't that help kind of narrow down the scenario predictions quite a bit?
A little bit. There's still a lot of guys where, the easiest thing, the first 3 guys that we're going to talk about, Finley, Narita, Jeff Cobb, it's a win and they're in for them because they're all sitting at 10 points. And the hard thing comes when you have your Goto, Takeshita, and Tsuji all with 8 points. And
all the 3 guys that I want to go through.
Depending on who they beat and what happens in the other matches, like they could slide in too. And so, yeah, it's very interesting to see how it's all going to shake out. But
sometimes you got to let go and let God. You know what I'm saying? I'm on the Alexa Bliss.
What?
I'm on the Alexa Bliss theory of watching wrestling. Sometimes you just have to sit back and let it play out and see how it goes. You know what I'm saying? So
why is it tied to Alexa Bliss though?
She's the one that tweeted that all those years ago. She was like, guys, sometimes you just have to let a story play out.
The whole Sister Abigail thing.
Let that story play out. So I'm on the Alexa Bliss shit. Like, let this shit play out. We'll see.
Well,
I'm not gonna predict too much on this show. That's not what we're here for. No, I'm just playing.
Well, let's talk about Dave Finley, IWGP Global Heavyweight Champion. So he's sitting 5-3, 10 points, currently first in the block. Night 12, he lost to Hiroki Goto. Night 14, came back and defeated Jeff Cobb, which was a very important win there for him to kind of lock up first place for right now. Phil, what are your thoughts been on Finlay?
I was not a Finlay guy coming into this tournament. I generally think he is the worst Bullet Club leader. Have not been a fan of him heading up Bullet Club at all. He has been one of the highlights of this tournament. By far, I think that his heel work has been incredible. I think his matches have been good. His theme song's a slapper. Maybe I was just all wrong on David Finlay this entire time because I definitely came around on him in this tournament.
I was not a David Finlay guy coming into this tournament, and I'm not a David Finlay guy. I'm just playing. I talked a lot about these guys last week, so I'll kind of just let you guys kind of take it. I'll kick it to Jeremy.
Yeah. So Rambo saying Central Kingdom onward, he's been pretty good in my opinion. And yeah, I think he's had definitely some highlight moments throughout the year, and yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of he's a very polarizing guy. But I thought that he's looked good in this tournament, and they've done a good job establishing him. And he's really gotten the powerbomb thing over. That kind of started last year with the whole feud with God and how he put Tama Tonga out, and he's kind of continued to use the powerbomb. And it was very impressive in the Jeff Cobb match. He was powerbombing Cobb around.
Yeah, that was crazy.
He jackknifed. Don't get me wrong. I've got criticisms about David Finlay, but I love me a jackknife, and he fucking jackknife powerbomb Jeff Cobb. It was incredible.
Yeah. And I thought he was a great foil for Hiroki Goto, and the way that Goto's been kind of getting a resurgence here, and he was a great heel to go against Goto in that main event. So, yeah, I thought he's played his role here very well, And so now he's in a prime position now to potentially win the whole block and advance. So right now he's first. He's got to win his last match coming up on Wednesday to advance to the quarterfinals. But yeah, overall, I think it's pretty enjoyable watching Finlay.
Yeah, you know what it was? I think him coming in straight after Jay White, and Jay White was so popular, so beloved as a leader of Bullet Club, and you're thinking like, all right, if Jay's out, you're going to bring in somebody that's cooler than Jay, right? And no, you didn't. We got David Finlay, and I think all of us were just like, but why? Like, nobody wants him as leader. And then the more Gabe Kidd gets his spot, the more it looks like, well, why isn't Gabe leader? Gabe's the cool one. Gabe is interesting. But throughout this tournament, I get it. Like, he's shown a lot of what Jay White was great at as leader of Bullet Club, the heel work that he did. Because, I mean, you're not supposed to like him. He does such a great job of getting you to root for that other guy. And that's really his strength. And I think that's been his strength throughout this tournament.
Yeah, definitely. And also, yeah, very, hard shoes to fill. I mean, you go back to every Bullet Club leader. You go from, Prince Devitt, Finn Balor to AJ Styles to Kenny Omega to Jay White. Like, you have a lineage of just really incredible pro wrestlers, really cool guys that led this cool faction. And then you go to Finlay, who has kind of been, just kind of sitting in that, undercard with Juice, doing the whole Finn Juice thing, and just kind of this almost like a frat boy, just kind of silly energy. And so for do this kind of quick switch of like, all right, now he's this dastardly heel and he's, filling in for Jay White. Yeah, it was kind of a sharp kind of turn there, but I think he's definitely settling in to the role now. And like you mentioned, Phil, yeah, really kind of picking up on some of the things that Jay White did really well. And so, yeah, he's never going to live up to being a Jay White, a Kenny Omega, or AJ Styles. But I think he's, like you mentioned, he's not trying to be a cool heel. Like, he is trying to get heat. He wants you to boo him and to get the babyface over. And so I think that's what he's really been good at.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about another Bullet Club adjacent guy from the House of Torture, Ren Narita, who's coming in currently second in the block, 5-3 with 10 points on night 12. Narita defeating Yu Uemura, and then on night 14, defeating the never openweight champion Hanare.
Ren Narita is a strange one for me. I still don't like the rebrand at all. And I understand it because at one point he's basically Rock Lee. He was basically Shibata's Rock Lee, where everybody knew, like, yeah, he's like his young boy. He's good. He's the guy coming up under Shibata's wing. But now that Shibata's not with the company, you got to find a way to pivot with him. I don't think the House of Torture was the way to go. He feels incredibly miscast in this role. I just don't enjoy him in a role. And every time he picks up wins with the shenanigans and stuff, I'm like, this guy is very good at the technical wrestling. He's really good at hard hitting. He's one of my favorite of the guys that you picked as the Three Musketeers. And I just don't buy him in this role. I just don't like it. And I've tried to like it. It just doesn't fit him, though.
Yeah, right there with you. I mean, we've been fans of Narita, again, going back to the Young Lion days, and then again, another guy who had a great run in New Japan Strong. He had a lot of great matches with Filthy Tom Lawler and Fred Rosser. And it's really kind of stood out on that brand. And then it was like, yeah, all right. Like, yeah, he's kind of this next coming of Shibata, the great hard-hitting technical style. And yeah, the initial kind of comeback, the whole Son of Strong style. He blazes through the TV championship tournament. He gets that match with Zack at Wrestle Kingdom. And it seems like, all right, there's big things for Narita. They're kind of pushing him here, and then, yeah, they make the pivot to House of Torture. And I will say, I feel like he is doing what they want him to do well, but it's not what I want to see. I want to see that Son of Strong style Narita going out here having great, crazy matches. But unfortunately, yeah, they've given him this House of Torture role, the whole sold out thing, and so we're getting the push-up bar and some of that stuff. At least I would say there's been a less shenanigans in his matches maybe compared to Evil. But yeah, it's not been fun to watch. Just knowing the potential. We know what he can do. Like, we've seen him have the great matches with these hard hitters like Ishii and stuff like that. But then we're reduced to seeing him, distract the ref, low blow, push-up bar, Yeah.
Heavyweight show.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about Narita this last couple nights, Josh?
I haven't really been impressed, to be honest with you. I was hoping that we'd get something of note in either the Hinari or the Yumura match, and we just really didn't. His matches haven't been bad per se. They just haven't been exciting. There's been nothing to really grasp onto to see the potential forward future for him. He's wearing a t-shirt every night. Somehow he's at fucking 10 points. It's that's one of the most baffling bookings of the entirety of the tournament.
It is.
It's fucking weird. I don't know.
Tanahashi said we're pushing young guys, right? Here you go. Oh man.
I don't know, bro.
Yeah, no. What night was that where he had, it wasn't the main event, but no, it was the Yuya match in night 12, and I was just sitting there like, okay. This match, like you said, the match wasn't bad, but I was just like, this isn't making me feel like I need to see this matchup again. Based on what we know that Ren Narita could do before joining this faction, I'm just still not on board. He just still feels like he's miscast. I still feel like everything he was doing before was way better.
Yeah, it was very disappointing. Last week when he had a main event spot with Yota Tsuji, and it was like, all right, here we go. Like, don't let him actually wrestle, and they didn't. And so,
no,
he's getting these opportunities. He's getting a push. He's second in the block here. He's getting main events, but he's not really getting to show what he can do. I mean, there's been glimpses, like he hits an exploder every once in a while. He does some kind of crazy like strike every once in a while, but then it gets masked by the House of Torture.
There's this thing in dating. It's called love bombing. Somebody they want to manipulate you to get you to depend on them, and I feel like we got love bombed by Ren Narita in the beginning. He gave us all this hard strikes, all this strong style, but then eventually who they really are at the end of the day, it always comes back, and then you're still in love with that guy for the potential that you think he has, but sometimes you've got to accept people for who they really are. And what Ren Narita is he's a guy that uses X-Pac's finish. He hits people in the head with a metal push-up bar, and he wears a t-shirt to the ring. That's who he is, and it's not going to change, guys.
I just don't want it. Yeah. It's okay, man.
That's why sometimes you have to set boundaries in your life for yourself.
I just want Shibata to show up and rescue him from this faction, man.
My recommendation is no contact. So, we have to watch his matches, but those of you guys out there, you don't have to watch this guy's matches. It's totally, you could go no contact. Just stop watching the Narita matches and then move on. It's okay. Be fine.
Well, like our friend Rich Latta likes to say, when somebody joins House of Torture, it's like you find out somebody's done crack. And so Narita, he's on the crack. He likes the crack, and I don't know if we're gonna get him back. So it's sad.
Was that who he said their career was over?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I remember he woke up and he bro, there's probably nobody that's like more heated in the discords over there on Voices of Wrestling when it comes to New Japan than like Rich, because he gets in fucking fights with all those guys. But he was like glad to finally wake up and find out that Ren Narita's career is fucking over. And I mean, tell me where when he's telling lies,
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't have to be that way, because I initially yelled no at the screen when Jack Perry joined them as well. But Jack ended up doing well with them. Ren is not doing well with this faction. Can we just finally admit it? He's not doing well with this faction. He does not fit. He should be doing something else.
Yeah,
I think he's doing perfectly well. He's doing exactly what they want him to do.
He is doing exactly what he wants.
Doing his job.
He is doing exactly what they want him to do, but he just feels so miscast. It just doesn't work, man.
Yeah. We had a couple questions here. Adam Pro 123 says, with Narita beating both Jeff Cobb and Hinare in the blocks, what title do you think he will go after first? The Never title or the TV title?
I'd have to assume the TV title because he has history with it from being in the tournament, if I had to guess.
That's probably the way to go. Yeah, there's that allure of him finally capturing that TV title, and so maybe he uses the House of Torture antics to capture it.
Probably never six mans.
The Gambler23 on Twitter says, of all the people to be topping B block going into the final stretch, Ren effing Narita. Really?
Right there with you.
Can't believe it. 10 points.
Yeah. So another guy coming in with 10 points, the TV champion, Jeff Cobb. So night 12, Cobb defeated Bolton Oleg, and then on night 14, he dropped to Dave Finley. So as of right now, he's third in the block. So if B block were to end right now, Finley, Narita, and Cobb would be the three guys going forward. So that was a very important loss to the Finley there, and he has to win to advance on the final B block night. Phil, what have you been thinking about Cobb?
I think he's been great. I think that the big man matches he's been in with Oleg, I think that was night 10. He had the match with Hanare, also incredible. He's been in some really, really good matches in the tournament. I would not mind him moving on to the playoffs. I just don't know how that's going to work out, though, because I feel like if anybody drops out and somebody like Goto moves up, it's probably going to be Cobb.
Yeah, loved Jeff Cobb versus Oleg Bolton. On the one hand, sure, when it comes to Haas fights, you get the big slaps and the big meaty men slap meat and all that, yada, yada. But these guys were suplexing each other. That's a different kind of Haas fight. This reminded me of like Steiners versus Vader and that sort of shit. Really, really cool stuff. I loved that match. And then, kudos to Jeff Cobb for taking all those fucking power bombs from David Finley.
Yeah, it's weird. I've seen a lot of people who have been down on Cobb on this tournament. Really? A lot of reviewers have kind of been saying, it's kind of just there. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've enjoyed a lot of his work in the tournament. I feel like he's had a lot of hard-hitting matches. And look at the Oleg match. Yeah, they're suplexing each other around. And I feel like he did a lot of really cool.
The Takeshita match?
Yeah.
He's had great matches.
Yeah, I thought Cobb's great. I have several, 4-star matches for him in my rating sheet. But yeah, I've enjoyed his work, and I think that it's good to kind of see him back up atop. A couple of years ago, he had that big undefeated streak in the block, but got knocked out in the end there. So, again, he's in a very pivotal spot here. But like you mentioned, Phil, if any of these 8-point guys get 10, it does seem like that could potentially knock him out of that third place spot. So he definitely has to win to get 12 points and to solidify going forward. But yeah, I think he's a guy that, he's had kind of stop and start pushes throughout his New Japan run. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they, wanted to get him into that quarterfinals, especially given his G1 history. But with him being a champion, I have a feeling he might get knocked out before he gets to the quarterfinals. So moving on to Hiroki Goto, coming in 4-4 with 8 points. Night 12, Goto defeated Dave Finley, and then night 14 had a tough loss to El Phantasmo.
Yeah, big loss there from a mathematical standpoint. Still alive though. The match with Finley, that was the match in Corkin, correct?
Yeah.
So they threw everything at this guy, and he still prevailed, and then had his kids at ringside. That was a very heartwarming moment, and the Corkin crowd was so behind him. Really, really heartwarming stuff. Great to see that. And, the G in G1 stands for Goto, and that might really actually be a real thing this year.
Yeah, Tournament Goto has delivered every time. I think the Finlay match was great. He's had multiple really, really good matches in this tournament. Like you said, the Corrigan match was great. Letting him main event that show ended by making his daughter cry by telling her that she should do her homework, and then ending the night with her on his shoulders. Like the stereotypical wrestler athlete going into the back with his kids. It was really, really great. Go figure. I would not be upset about Goto winning this tournament. I think Goto finally getting that big win and going to Wrestle Kingdom could be a great story. At this point where you don't have all the main eventers you had, you don't have Okada no more. Tanahashi is older, Naito's older. If you finally want to give him that Wrestle Kingdom win, this wouldn't be a bad year to do it because you have the void.
And he's never won the world title.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at it. I think it would be a great story to tell. He doesn't even have to have this long run, but just to finally give him his moment at Wrestle Kingdom, I think would be worth it.
You know, earlier in the year, when they were doing the play-in rounds to get into the G1, I had actually kind of speculated, what if they did the exact same booking that you're talking about, but with Ishii? And I was like, they could easily do that. Like, there's no reason right now that they couldn't do that with a guy like Ishii, because they're lacking for star power. The place would come unglued. It would be a huge underdog role type of scenario, similar to Kofi Mania, similar to, Yeselmania and everything like that. And it works on the exact same level with Goto. I would totally be so behind that at this point in time if they decided to give Goto the win and we ended up with him and Naito at Wrestle Kingdom. Not to say that those guys have had barn burners in the past. I mean, I think that their matches have been fairly average across the board, but that'd be when you want to talk about stories, you want to talk about moments, that would be a moment. And I think, I would love if they did that. I'm not holding my breath, but I hope they do.
Yeah, I feel like Goto has really been awesome in this tournament, and also a guy that was a part of the golden era of New Japan. It's been a part of so many of these great G1 tournaments, and friend of the show Joe Lanzo was making a good point on his G1 audio where he was mentioning Goto was kind of surrounded by Okada, Tanahashi, Naito, Omega. Like, Goto's always been great, but he was surrounded by people that were even greater than him. And so now all those people are gone, and he's still here, and he's actually still great. And I think people are realizing wow, yeah, Goto is so great. And it's it's easier to realize when Okada, Omega, all these guys are not around him, and he's from that era. He's from that era of people who know how to kind of turn it up and to have a great tournament and what the G1 really means. And he's been through 16 of these things. And so, yeah, I think that he's been awesome, and it would be an incredible story to have him advance and kind of be this veteran underdog and go through and win the block and win the finals and stuff like that. That would be a cool story. For me, as much as a story that would be cool, I feel like because we're in a transition period, I feel like we really need to get a young guy in the Tokyo Dome main event or in this G1 final. It's hard. I love the Goto story, but also at the same time, all right, there's a reason why for these past 16 years they have not gone with him. They've had plenty of opportunities to go with him, and he's one of the most failing world title challengers out there. And so I feel like as cool as that Goto story is, we need to get a young guy up and running.
Well, I'm not one to usually do this, and I don't know when that audio was recorded from Joe Lanza. I'm not saying that there was any sort of crossover, but I did say that exact same point on this show 1 week ago to the day. So I don't know when he said that shit. But you go back and you listen to last week's audio, and I said that this man was surrounded by all those great guys from two generations and was, kind of counted out and was always great. And now he's continued to be great for multiple generations, even after a lot of those guys have gone off to greener pasture. I said that shit last week. I'm just throwing it out there.
We have a question from that dude named Minutes. He says, is this Goto's best chance at winning the G1 and heavyweight title?
No. He won the G1 already.
Will this be his second best chance?
This would be his best chance to win it again? Yeah, probably. Well, no, because remember, he finaled against Kenny Omega. That was probably that was his best chances back then. Maybe if he gets to the finals, we'll see.
All right, let's talk about
I think it's his best chance to.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Phil. You're a little lagging there.
Am I lagging?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're good now.
No, I was gonna say that I think it was his. Okay, I think it's his best chance to win a tournament and actually go to Wrestle Kingdom and win, but I don't know if I believe it. I had to see it to believe it at this point.
I think the year that he won the G1, he didn't headline the Tokyo Dome. I think he cashed in and challenged Kiji Muto for the Triple Crown title in All Japan and lost. I think that was 08. I don't know. I'd have to check again, but something like that definitely happened.
The most Goto thing to happen. But let's talk about the Alpha Konosuke Takeshita, also sitting at 4-4 with 8 points. So night 12 defeating Phantasmo. Night 14, big upset, losing to Bolton Oleg.
Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, far away, the MVP of this tournament has been incredible. All of his matches have been fantastic. The LP matches, best match of this tournament, easily. And I was prepared to say that his earlier matches were going to be the match of the tournament, but go figure, LP had an incredible match. I like the story that they told with LP as well, of him, not having his friends anymore and kind of having a loss of direction, but then coming out for this match being fired up. The light up jacket was back. He showed a lot of fighting spirit in this match, and Takeshita just put him away. I mean, heartbreakingly put him away. I was a bit confused by the Oleg match. I know that they have a lot of investment in Oleg right now, but that felt like one of those matches they could have just gave Takeshita the definitive win to kind of have him move forward. But I also understand he's not a New Japan wrestler, so it would have been kind of strange to go, hey, here's this young lion that we've been building up, and we put him in this tournament to showcase him. Let's just have him lose to somebody that don't even work here. That would have been wild booking, but he's been so fantastic. I think I just want to see him push forward. I want to see him in the finals. So when he did lose, I'm like, oh man, if he doesn't make the playoffs because he just lost to Oleg, like, why we do that?
Yeah, Takeshita is awesome, and I think from day one, once he was announced, people were kind of circling matches and kind of predicting he's going to win the block, he's going to go through, and I think it is a little bit interesting to not have him be so, far ahead. And you made a great point, Phil. Like, he is not a New Japan contracted guy. He's an AEW DDT guy. And so to have him kind of come in and be first in the block ahead of your Sujis and Bolton Olegs and all these Uemuras, these guys that are your guys and you're pushing, it's like, yeah, you got to hold the phone there. Like, what about the guys that you have that are going to be around once he goes back to AEW? And so definitely interesting booking decision there to have him lose to Oleg, and that match was awesome. Like, one of like the best of the opening matches from this tournament, and they just went out there, hit hard, cool moves. Oleg just powering up, firing up, and I think Takeshita really guided him to a really great matchup there. And then once he hit that kamikaze verdict combo, I was shocked. I was like, what? he beat this man. It was crazy. And then Takeshita and Phantasmo absolutely killed it in court. And again, that was the second match from in the tournaments of that night, and they just absolutely killed it. The crazy, the bastard driver from the apron to the table on the floor, just absolutely nuts. And they went up there, fighting spirit, hard hitting, the near falls, the kickouts at one towards the end, ELP's back a split. Like, it was just so, I kind of was like rooting for ELP then at that moment, because like he was fighting so hard, and he has this, he's been eating so much losses. I'm like, come on, you can do it, hit that sudden death. But eventually Takeshita came back and hit him with that I think he called it with the blazing fire. I think that spinning Falcon Arrow suplex thing he does. Great stuff from Takeshita this week. We had a question from @AnwarStarWin on Twitter. It says, if AEW drags their feet on pushing 5-star Takeshita after the G1, should he take the opportunity to jump to New Japan when his contract is up? And Discord Daddy, similar question. Think Takeshita sticks around post G1?
I don't know what his contract status is, but listen, man, that guy goes back over there, and we're still doing the Don Callis stuff, man. I might be standing in front of Jacksonville Stadium every week with a sign like, "Look, let this guy go. Free Takeshita. Get him out of this company. You cannot have him come out of this tournament and go back over there and do the same stuff. You cannot. You can't do it." And I know, like, some people will be like, the Don stuff is for heat. No. You cannot have him go over there and keep doing the same stuff. If he comes back, you have to have a plan for him.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, what's the heat at this point? Like, he beat Kenny Omega twice. That was the heat. And then there was no follow-up from that. No title match, no big push forward after beating one of the top guys twice in a matter in between like a week or so, between All In and All Out. And then they've refused to really push him. He's been just kind of a lackey in the Don Callis family this whole time. And so, yeah, if there's not a plan of like, all right, we're going to give him in a program with somebody, like maybe we're finally going to look at the Ospreay program or something like that, and really push him, then yeah, I think that, I mean, he just feels at home in New Japan. Like, he fit like a glove. The presentation, the way he wrestled, like, it was just kind of a night and day difference to what we've seen in AEW.
I agree with almost everything you guys have said. The one thing I somewhat disagree about, a couple things. Number one, I think the fact that he hasn't been as protected as you would expect him to be is very telling, especially considering how, how much closer in terms of relationship and booking Tony Khan and AEW's booking staff are these days. That tells you something. He's 500 as we speak. He might go through, but he's 500 right now, and that says something. The other thing too is that I think that him having a stronger tournament to get through the block would have meant that beating him meant more. So while yes, you definitely want to build up your younger guys and everything, you don't want to push him as the tip top guy. It means less when you beat him, when 4 guys beat him and potentially 5 guys are going to beat him in the tournament than it would have meant if like only 2 or 3 ultimately defeated him, So that's my 2 cents on it. But I agree with everything else you guys said. MVP of the tournament, given everybody their best matches. I loved the match with Takeshita and Oleg Boltin. But I will say this, and I know this sounds so hater shit, but it's just the truth. They will never have a plan for him at AEW. There is no future there. I mean, he'll continue to get paid well, and he'll continue to have matches on TV, but he will never, ever, ever be a star there because they have a track record. We've watched the show for 5 years now. They don't know how to utilize non-English speaking male stars. Like, there's a glass ceiling there. They don't have the creative for it. You can maybe say Okada, but even that, he's a one note. It's Okada, and it's a one note trick pony. And there's a reason that the Lucha Brothers are leaving. There's a reason they've never had a minority from like another country really be a top champion for a prolonged period in that company, because they don't have the creative to understand how to utilize those guys and get them over to that level. It is a promotion where the best guys that are booked at the top, they cut promos, and they don't know how to utilize a Japanese or a Spanish speaking guy. It's just not going to happen. It's not in the cards.
Ramblin says, let's start a GoFundMe for his NJPW contract because the yen is down bad.
Actually, the yen is up a little bit. The stock market is down bad, which those are inverse to one another.
Interesting.
I guess the thing that I will say with him with AEW is they have done things like you said, giving him the 2 wins over Kenny Omega. They gave him the match with Mox. They gave him big wins this year over guys that don't routinely lose to somebody like him, and not somebody like him as in foreign wrestlers, somebody like him that doesn't have the cachet in the company. And so it's like, in a lot of ways, it's like 2 steps forward, 4 more steps backwards. It's like, bro, if you're gonna do something like that, give him the win over Kenny Omega. You've got to be able to afterwards push him forward. Like, I thought it was a huge mistake after that to not have him in the Continental Classic, for example. And I mean, I guess like the story of it was he was in Japan and there was some other stuff going on. But I mean, if you're going to give him that win, you got to have the plan coming out of that of what to do next. The follow-up should have been good. Now, sure, you can make the argument that him not being in the Continental Classic paved the way for him to have a good tournament here in the G1. Yeah, but again, if he has this great G1 run and he comes back over, you're going to set people up for the same kind of apathy that you had when you had no follow-up when he beat Kenny Omega. And I just hope that they don't make that mistake. I personally kind of feel like while I enjoyed things about the heel run, like the Kenny Omega matches, I kind of feel like it was a mistake to turn him because he was so popular as a babyface. And so, I don't know. I think when he comes back, if this guy comes back and gets reactions, I would say turn him.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I feel like the whole like underdog babyface run he was doing was working. He got over that way, and people really wanted to see him win. And when he finally got his first, big Dynamite win, people were really behind him. And so I think there's a lot of stuff to do there with him as a babyface. And so that goes back to Josh's point of just kind of it's almost kind of a North American thing at this point now, where you kind of get a top foreign star and you just don't know what to do with him. And obviously he's having better matches than he probably would have if he was in a WWE. But again, that kind of glass ceiling is there of a non-English speaking guy, and you don't really go all the way with him, and you don't put him in the pay-per-view main events. But yeah, so hopefully coming back, hopefully he'll be in the probably the Casino Gauntlet at Wembley. And then going forward from there, hopefully there is a plan for him, maybe international title run, something like that. But super talented guy, and could be interesting to see.
It's not just a AEW issue. It is, like you mentioned, a North American wrestling issue. Like WWE has, what's their track record? The most successful, like, for the two that I can think of where they've been able to integrate Japanese foreign speaking wrestler is probably Asuka and Tajiri. And both of them became characters, and gained popularity based off
Nakamura too.
And I would put Nakamura in the next tier, but he has consistently wavered from being extremely over to down, back to up, back to down, and he's kind of vacillated between different roles in the company, whereas like Tajiri sort of had this very carved out popular niche for himself. Asuka has kind of maintained this dominant place for themselves, and that's all been in spite of the fact that they don't speak English. What Spanish speakers have ever done well in WWE other than like Mil Mascaras in the 70s? Like literally, if Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero didn't speak English, they would never, ever have been world champions. Like the shit was never going to happen. And the thing with AEW is I think a lot of fans sort of hoped it would be different. But at the end of the day, and I'm not trying to shit on them, they've clearly been able to push, like you mentioned, they've pushed Takeshita at times, they've pushed the Lucha Brothers, but there's a level where it's stop and go, and they just get them to a certain point and then they pull back on it, and they don't have the creative to utilize that type of talent the right way long term. They just don't.
Yeah, I would hope that Takeshita is an outlier because, the connection to DDT, connection to Kenny Omega. So hopefully that changes. I don't know. I do think that the promising thing that I can say for people that hope that he comes back there and does well, that reaction to him in the ladder match at Forbidden Door was good. When he was seconds away from winning that belt, that crowd was ready to erupt. And just with other things that they've done, like sending him over to do the tournament, it shows that they see the potential there. It shows that they see it in him. I just hope that they have something planned, because otherwise,
my hope, and it is selfish to a certain extent, I do wish he would come back to New Japan and do something long term, or even if it was a shared sort of thing where he could split time between the companies, that might be a good compromise. But he's so at home in New Japan. He's like this one missing piece that with them losing all these top stars, he's a guy that can really step into that role and fill that void. And it would be so beneficial, but we don't know what his contract status is. We don't know what the financials realistically look like. The one thing I do point to is like, I remember in the 90s when Stone Cold and Mick Foley and a wide variety of guys took huge pay cuts to go to Philly so that they could kind of rebrand themselves and take that next step to get to WWE. And I'm not saying that he's going to do that to get back to WWE, but it might not be the worst thing in the world to come here, headline Tokyo Domes, win the gold strap, main event for a year, and then go back. Or, that might be the one thing that kind of puts him over the top, that their creative is lacking, that he might be able to utilize to, take a step back to get back to where people thought he was going to be.
Yeah, I agree. But as long as he's got that DDT branding on him, it's not going to happen, because that's what I immediately thought when he had the Eliminator match against Mox. I was like, well, as long as he's considered a DDT wrestler, New Japan is not going to let him win that match because of politics between companies in Japan. And so as long as he's got that DDT on him, it's never going to happen.
It's true. But then again, we don't know what that long-term relationship really looks like. I mean, if he's locked up for years, sure. But I mean, stranger things have happened. We saw Kenny Omega jump. We saw Kota Ibushi jump. We've seen guys leave DDT to get to the big leagues in New Japan.
I personally would like to see him make the jump, but till he makes that jump, I think we're going to be in this this dance, this back and forth for Willy Wonky thing.
Yeah, totally agree with you guys. Would definitely love to see him make his home in New Japan. But let's talk about somebody who is a New Japan homer, the Gene Blast, Yota Tsuji. He's sitting at 4-4 with 8 points. On night 12, defeated the Never Openweight champion Hanare, and then on night 14, he lost to Yuya Uemura. Tough matchup there. Uemura getting an injury in the matchup there, kind of a wonky finish there, but that leaves Tsuji at 8 points.
I've sort of felt like Tsuji has been consistent, so that's very good, and obviously he's got all this charisma and star appeal, so that's still on display there. At the same time, I don't feel like while he's had some very good performances and some standout matches, I haven't felt like he's taken that step to differentiate himself in this tournament the way he did, like, say, in the New Japan Cup. It was like, holy shit, he's really standing out. That hasn't really been so much so during this tournament. And in these last two nights, I thought the Hanare match was very good. Maybe it wasn't where I thought it could have gotten to. And then the Uemura match was really excellent, and it was on its way. Those guys, obviously longtime rivals. Unfortunately, with the Uemura injury coming off that frog splash, it really threw everything into a tailspin for the second half of the match. It echoed a lot of the same kind of feelings that we've saw a few G1s ago in the finals when Kota Ibushi hurt himself in that finals match against Kazuchika Okada. And what I think happened, and this is just my call on things, I don't know what the finish of that match was going to be. I think the one thing we can probably agree on, Uemura was going over no matter what, because they wouldn't, if he didn't have to go over, they probably could have and should have audibled and had Tsuji go over, but they stuck with the game plan and had Uemura win that match, which is fine. But then they went to that finish where he did the crucifix to try and pin Tsuji. And I honestly think that was the audible finish that they called, and then they couldn't do it because Uemura's arm was so fucked up. I don't think he could maintain the crucifix, and then they had to go to a small package, and it just kind of fell apart. It was all over the place. So, that was very, very unfortunate. But Tsuji still looks great. He just hasn't taken that next step to like really be the tip top star that I was hoping to see in this tournament.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that he continues to show out of the guys that they picked as the three musketeers, he's the most polished. He's the most ready. He's got the full package. He's got the charisma. He can have the great matches. I don't know that the G1 run has proven anything that the New Japan Cup run didn't already prove to us. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I just think that you made the point earlier that they should make like definitive booking choices. Like if you're going to put the full machine behind the guy, then you should do it. And I don't feel like they've done that with Tsuji here in this tournament. And I feel like it's not even to his detriment, but I feel like they should be prepared to do it at this point. Because like I said, out of those 3 guys, he's ready. There's no reason not to at this point. He's had fantastic matches. I mean, the Takeshita match on night 1, I was ready to say that was match of the tournament. I thought he had a very, very good match with Yuya. Better than their Wrestle Kingdom match, I think. And it told a very good story as a continuation from that match. But yeah, like I said, nothing I've seen here is just like, okay, all of this is stuff that I already know. I'm already a fan. I'm already ready for them. Just make that next step and push them.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you guys. I feel like, they want to get a young guy over, and he is the most ready of all of them. Then, yeah, I think why not go almost like the Jeff Cobb route a couple of years ago and have him just clean the block out and, advance. Like, strap the rocket on him, have him beat people, have him be the number 1 in the block, have him advance to the finals. Like, I feel like you could definitely go a little bit heavier on the push for him, where it seems like they're trying to maybe do a little bit of an underdog thing here with him because he's coming in the final night with 8 points. If he wins, he's a chance to get through, and it's like the underdog thing doesn't work for everybody, and we've kind of seen like WWE make that mistake. It's like, all right, well, it worked for Bryan Danielson. We can do it for everybody. We can do it for Sami Zayn. We can do it for all these people. We can try and do it for Roman Reigns as a babyface, and like try to do this whole like underdog thing. Like, it just does not work for everybody. And a guy with the size and look of Tsuji, he should be more dominant. They should push him harder than they're pushing him now to really kind of get him over the hump. Because right now he's just kind of lumped in the middle of all these guys, which, no offense to all the other guys who are at 8 points or below that, but he is a guy that they want to put their future on. So you want him to look better than those guys that are lumped in with him at 8 points.
Yeah, that goes back to what I was saying earlier when we were discussing the A block, where I said, when we were talking about Umino, where I was like, they haven't gone in enough on these guys. And I mean, with them having 3 spots open in each block, and it kind of remains to be seen where everything's going to end up in the B block. But the idea that you're not going to go, I mean, it's fine for everybody to have a thing and you give them a little consolation prize, but we're kind of past that. You look at the booking of G1s in the 90s, and Chono, Hashimoto, and Muto were mainstays. They were always at the very, very tip top of the blocks, regardless of whether they won it or not. They were getting huge victories over established stars. Same thing in the early 2000s. There was a period where Nakamura and Tanahashi and Shibata and Naito and all those guys, they were, at the top of the blocks, and they stayed there for, a decade plus. And we have to kind of get to a point where we're doing that. I know some people will say it's still kind of early, but you're main eventing these guys. You put titles on them, you've had Tsuji's already a tournament winner. Like, yeah, we're at a point where they should be doing better in these tournaments, honestly.
Yeah. I don't think you need to tell the underdog story again after you won the New Japan Cup. Like, why are we doing it? Why are we trying to reinvent the wheel with that when he's won a tournament this year?
Yeah,
I think it's okay to do it with like one of the guys, but you don't need to do it with all the guys, because if everybody's equal, then nobody's really a breakout star, and you're just at a parity point then.
Yeah, and I think perception is reality, and we've seen that time and time again, especially in New Japan. And I think that goes back to Dave Finlay of like, all right, he's been this undercard, Joker Finn Juice guy for so long, and now all of a sudden he's a main eventer, and we're supposed to buy into it. Whereas, if we kind of keep Tsuji in this middling thing, like that perception is going to become the reality, and we're just going to see him as this kind of mid-card guy and not the main eventer that he's meant to be. And, he's a little bit older than some of these guys. I think he's like 30. And so I think, now's the time they need to be making the moves and just, strap the rocket to him. And great point, Josh, of like, look back at the history of a lot of these other guys that they push. Like, they're all on top of the block. They're in top spots. Like, you now is the perfect time. You don't have Okada, clogging up the main event scene. You don't have a healthy Tanahashi. You don't have a Jay White. You don't have a Kenny Omega. You don't have a Kota Ibushi. Like, the runway is clear. Like, there's no excuse to, we have a top established star. Like, no, the runway is clear. You need new stars. You got gift wrap this guy. Look at the reaction he got on night one on Dominion when he came back, and Fasanada. Like, you got hand wrapped a star right here, and they're not doing anything with him. But let's move on to Yuya Uemura, who we mentioned unfortunately had that arm injury from the frog splash in the Tsuji match. So he does have to give up his last match. That's going to put him at 4-5, ending with 8 points. So night 12, he lost to Narita. Like we mentioned, night 14, defeating Yota Tsuji.
I think of the 4 Reiwa guys, most people's consensus feeling was that Uemura was the one that elevated the most, took the most steps forward, and kind of differentiated himself from the pack during the course of this tournament. And it is unfortunate. When I saw him hit that frog splash, I saw the arm. I saw it buckle, and I knew immediately. I was like, he's fucking out. Like, this is done. And it sucks. It really, 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 really sucks, because he did have a great tournament.
Yeah. I was just saying before the injury that he is quickly becoming one of my favorite New Japan wrestlers. I think he had a very good tournament. Even the matches that he didn't win, he came away looking like a incredibly entertaining wrestler. I think that just his look, the presentation, and everything came along. I feel like the way they were booking him when he first came back was a little bit odd. Some of those matches didn't quite hit, but I think that this tournament worked really, really well for him. It's just very, very unfortunate. The worst possible time for him to get an injury. And I not even saying I think he would have won a tournament, but I just think that this was such a good run for him, and I would have been excited to see what they had for him at Wrestle Kingdom. Now, hopefully it's not serious. Hopefully that he can make a comeback before January, but just sad to see it. Just at this time, just horrible to see it.
Yeah, it was definitely a really sad injury. Kind of got flashbacks to Kota Ibushi dislocating his shoulder in the tournament finals a couple years ago against Okada. It's just a thing you hate to see happen, especially in the middle of a great main event match. And yeah, I felt like they were really cooking here, and it was on pace to be better than their Wrestle Kingdom match and some of the matches they had earlier in the year. But yeah, then the arm injury happened, and then kind of the wonky. They tried to do the crucifix, didn't work, and then did a small package, and so yeah, very unfortunate stuff there. And he's ending with 8 points, and yeah, I really do feel like he kind of turn the curve here. I think, like you mentioned, when he came back from excursion, like they were still kind of figuring out what to do, the whole heat storm thing, and join Just Five Guys, and I think they weren't quite sure what to do with him, but I think he's really kind of established himself. Unfortunately, they cut the hair, but I think you mentioned he grew the hair back. He's wearing like the Bryan Danielson like ROH robe kind of thing, and he's really trying to lean into being more of a pure wrestler. He's really focusing on the fundamentals and the arm drags, the cross bodies, the more pure, strong style of wrestling. And so I think that he's kind of getting his groove, getting that character. And so to see him get hurt right as I feel like he's starting to put stuff together really sucked. Yeah. Especially that to catch the match early in the tournament was really great. And yeah, I feel like he's just had some really, really good matches in the tournament. So yeah, hopefully the injury doesn't keep him out too long. He can be back come Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it kind of sucks that the finish is what people were talking about from the match, because I thought the match with Tsuji was very good. I thought the story they told coming off of the Wrestle Kingdom match, the hair versus hair match there, and coming off of that and playing off the finish of that match, I thought it was very smartly booked, but just the worst time for this injury to happen.
Yeah. We had a question here from Rambo, and says, Yuya's injury or anything else that happened this week change your thoughts about who is moving on to the elimination round?
I don't know if I believed that Yuya was going to move on. Because I do think that Yuya was always going to win that match, and I felt like that was kind of the way that we talked about how the Shota match was kind of his consolation for not winning the tournament, I feel like that was his storyline coming out of this tournament, and that was the way to end it. So I don't feel like he was moving on. I think regardless, he was going to win this match.
Yeah, I think he was going to win this match no matter what. But as far as the block scenarios, we're going to talk about the block scenarios, and they're pretty complex. So I'm not convinced of any particular thing. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to consider.
Yeah. And Dan Coffin says, "Is Yuya the new Yoshihashi?"
No.
Oh man. All right, 3 more guys here to talk about in the B block. First, 1/3 of the never open weight 6-man champions, Bolton Oleg Boss, the Snow Leopard. He's 4-5, 8 points. So on night 12, he lost to Jeff Cobb. Night 14, getting that upset win over Takeshita, and he had Uemura on the final night, so he gets that forfeit win. So that puts him at 4-5 with 8 points.
Yeah, I think he's been fantastic. I think he had a lot of buzz around him coming into the tournament. Debuting in the tournament with his actual look and theme music has been great for him. And when he's had to have good matches with the guys that you expect to have good matches with, he's delivered. I didn't expect him to win it to catch the match, but that match was fantastic. I thought that win did a lot for him. I don't know if I see him moving on, but this tournament has been a spectacular way to debut him, I think, as outside of his Young Lion run.
Dude's a fucking beast. He's awesome. And the match with Takeshita specifically, I mean, both of his matches recently, the match with Cobb was really, really awesome, but the match with Takeshita, I don't even know how many guys Takeshita in this block probably gave them their best match, but he certainly gave
probably most of them.
Probably most of them. And this one just ruled. I loved it. And then he fucking beat him, which was crazy.
Yeah, Bolton's been awesome, and we've talked about it every week now. Like they've given him the perfect kind of formula matches to go out there and have really good matches. Give him some interesting kind of simple stories to kind of run through, and he's been killing it. To catch the match being one of the best matches he's had, and I think they definitely have something here with him. And pretty big deal here. Ending 8 points, good record here. So yeah, the question will be up in the air. Like would he have beaten Yuya, or would he have, ended with 6 points? We'll never know. But overall, really good tournament. The Cobb match we talked about, and the Konosuke match, both really good matches. And so I would love to kind of see Bolton on this trajectory of where he's having these big wins and big opportunities. And I don't think he's a finished product just quite yet, but he's very close. And he has the look, he has the intensity, he speaks Japanese. Like there's a lot of things that are really in his favor right now. And so I think, keep putting him in there with the right guys. I think he needs to lean a little bit more into like a Brock Lesnar kind of style of wrestling, or even like a Scott and Rick Steiner. And in Japan, like more suplexes, more throwing people around. Like he's a big dude. We would hear stories of Gato telling Lance Archer, like, more monster. I need you to be more monster. Go out there and kill people. And so that's what I would like to see from Bolton. I want more monster. Go out there, get into Takeshita, German suplex, dropping people on their heads, like just be this huge monster.
I disagree. I think he needs to go more the Baba route. Maybe throwing some Don Leo Jonathan in there, Maybe some Gorilla Monsoon. That's what we have him watch some Gorilla Monsoon tapes, some MSG matches, from 1975. That's what we need.
You want this man to lock a hold on for 30 minutes?
Oh, God.
Watch some Yokozuna, give him a nerve hold.
You don't have to go that far back. You can just watch some Solo Sokoa for that.
Oh, God.
We had a question from Rambo. It says, what would you like to see come next for Oleg Bolton? Does he have a natural fit in the existing faction? Should he stay in Hantai? Who would you like to see him work with for his first personal feud?
I'd like to see him win the belt. and then he beats everybody. I don't know.
I think they've kind of set him up to be like the next guy up in the Nepper Overweight title picture. So I kind of feel like the Hanare match makes the most sense. I wouldn't mind him beating Hanare. I think Hanare's been a great champion, but they've got something no leg. It's very clear they got something in them.
Yeah, I think there's all the potential for a global title match against Finley. I think got to win over Finley early in the tournament. So there's some stuff you could do with him, some title challenges. But yeah, I think the Never division would be a great spot for him to kind of land. And maybe if you want to save that for the Tokyo Dome and have him kind of get that big dome moment beating Hanare in the dome could be really cool.
I'd like to see him cut a little bit and see if he can make that 220 limit.
Getting Super Juniors.
Why not?
Well, speaking of Hanare, the Never Openweight champion, he's up next to talk about. So he's ending. Currently he's at 3-5 with 6 points. So night 12, he lost to Tsuji. Night 14, losing to Ren Narita.
Yeah, you got to figure that's a disappointing, finish to the tournament. Those last couple disappointing losses there. I'm not gonna be surprised. I don't know. We'll take a look and see who he has upcoming on the final night. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets that win to get him up to the 8-point mark. So he's kind of up to snuff with his contemporaries.
He's got Goto on the last night.
That's bad news for Goto.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Hanare. I think his presentation is fantastic. I think him switching over to the big face tattoo, his theme music is fire. He's had great matches, I thought, in this tournament. He's not a guy that you immediately look at like, oh, that guy is going to move on to the playoffs and go straight on to the end. But I think he's been entertaining to watch in all the spots he's been in.
Yeah, he's also been great on commentary, too. There's been several nights where he joined Walker Stewart for English commentary, and I thought he had great play-by-play and really kind of helped tell a story of what wrestlers are doing in there. But yeah, he's had some really good matches that kind of started off hot with some wins, but yeah, kind of trailing off here to the end. He has one more match left against Goto on the final night to end with 8 points, which I'm thinking is going to happen to kind of get him in a good, 8 points is pretty respectable for a G1 standing, especially for a champion. So there's plenty of people that can challenge him in the fall for the Never title. So we'll see where we go with him from there. And then last in the block, El Phantasmo, also sitting at 3-5 with 6 points. Night 12, like you mentioned, losing to Takeshita. And night 14, he defeated Hiroki Goto, which was a big loss for Goto there. So what are you guys' thoughts been on ELP?
I'm surprised that they went with the storyline for so long, because I do like the storyline of him trying to find his direction and being lost without his tag partner and what he had built up after the tournament from last year. Because the story last year was he was trying to find his way after being out of the Bullet Club, and then he did find his way when he found friends. And then by the tournament this year, all of that immediately went to shit. And so I like that story, but it kind of feel like it went on too long. I would have liked to seen him pick up more wins, because he is very popular as a babyface, and I feel like they should be doing more with him.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I know there's, again, a large fan base that doesn't really like ELP for whatever reason. There seems to be a thing against white flippy dudes in Japan. I don't know what the deal is there, but I think Phantasmo is awesome, and yeah, I think that there's definitely more you could do with him, and he's had some great matches. I've also seen people kind of criticize his performances in the tournament. I feel like he's had great matches, and especially, you look at this Takeshita match, probably one of the matches of the whole tournament, and so yeah, I think there's definitely room to push him again when you're a lot of top foreigners. Also, Zach is probably your key top foreigner, but there's other spots to kind of push people up. You have a Will Ospreay that's gone, a Jay White that's gone. That leaves the room open again. If that runway's open, that can push some foreign stars up there. And so ELP, I think, is a guy that is kind of prove his worth and is always great in a big spot. And so I definitely think that he's a guy that you should push while you have them.
Wrestling has taught me that if you have a group of individuals that are part of a separate culture and they're all together, but you have one token white guy in the group, it just doesn't work out. It didn't work out for Crush when he was part of the Nation of Domination. It didn't work out for Owen Hart when he was part of the Nation. It didn't work out for Sami Zayn in the Bloodline. And ELP, another white man that's fallen by the wayside. He's hurt. No, but the whole storyline has been a little bit perplexing because it is a rehash of what we saw last year, like Phil mentioned. So you kind of have to wonder, is there going to be a follow-up? I'll tell you guys the truth. I think that match with Takeshita, everyone was talking about like, oh, maybe this is the moment where he's found himself, and I don't think that was it at all. I think that match was a job resume. He was treating that match like a tryout for Tony Khan. He knew that's the one time Tony Khan might tune in to see him wrestle, and he's like, I gotta come off like a star. He brought out the shiny jacket. He's like, fuck a storyline. I need to come off like a big ass star. He came out there, he went through that table to, he died for the sins of the Bloodline, so he could get signed by Tony.
Are you saying that he walked out there and he was like, "Oh, I know where you work"? He's like, "Wait a minute, you guys were interested in Finn Balor, right? Hey, I got a light up jacket. Look, I was part of Bullet Club. Like, I can do the graps. Like, sign me."
I wonder if this quote unquote story is even something that's company driven more so than just him being like, I got to make chicken shit or chicken salad out of chicken shit,
Yeah.
One thing we were wrong on when we predicted the tournament, we kind of thought that he might be a guy finalizing in the block, and he's actually at the bottom of the block. And a lot of people in our Discord told us that that's where they saw him. And I disagreed, especially since considering last year, he almost was a finalist in his block and got ousted by that match with Ospreay. But the one thing that I said last week that remains true, at some point in a tournament, big match ELP shows up, and it's happened in every major round robin tournament he's ever been in. He has one standout match. It's usually in Korakuen, and that rang true once again here, match of the tournament. But I don't know what the follow-up is going to be. I don't know where they're going with this, if at all. I don't know if he's even staying in the fucking company. It's really hard to know at this current time. The last thing I will say, though, I will agree that he's had a down tournament in terms of his own personal potential, and maybe that is partially due to the storyline. Maybe that's a lack of motivation. I don't know. But I'm never going to buy into this idea that's out there that he had a terrible tournament or that he's a bad wrestler.
Nah.
Because, bro, if you put Yujiro Takahashi in there and he was having the kind of down performances that ELP had, we'd be talking about the career resurgence of a lifetime. We'd be like, holy fuck, what got into this guy? But because it's ELP, we're like, down. He's only having 3.5 star matches every night. What kind of fucking shit is this?
Yeah. I mean, if it's me, I think the story going into the Dome, if you want somebody to win the global championship and do the feud with Jay White, it should be ELP. He has the most reason to beat him.
Well, ELP, I think for sure ELP is beating, and I guess that's leading us to where we're going. I think ELP is beating David Finlay on the final night regardless. So that's a big thing there. But for anybody that wants to tell me ELP is not a good wrestler, and bro, this is coming from a guy who, like, I made a name off myself or I had a reputation for being one of the biggest ELP haters in the space for a long time. And it was mainly because I thought there were a lot of glaring holes in his game, but he shored those up. He got better at striking. He got better at selling. He got better at the basic minutiae of wrestling ever since he came to this company. And then you combine that with his athleticism. It's like, sure, there might be a few things you don't like about him. And maybe you don't like the, Shawn Michaels school of indie-rific wrestling. I get that, but just objectively, he's one of the best wrestlers on the fucking roster, and there's no getting around that. And it doesn't matter if you like it or not, the same way that Gabe Kidd, totally different styles, one of the best wrestlers on the roster. You don't have to like ELP, but if you say he sucks and he's having bad matches, I don't know. Either I've lost the plot and I just don't know what the fuck I'm looking at anymore, or something is disconnected here, because I'm going to need someone to give me a Joseph Monticello level YouTube vlog diary level breakdown to show me what he's doing that's not fucking good, because I can't see it. I got eyes. I'm watching the guy wrestle. I wish when I go to school, I hope tomorrow night when I'm in that fucking ring that I could do a minuscule amount of the types of shit that he's able to do with fluidity and the kind of fucking body control he has. Like, he's incredible.
Tell Tony that's your goal, to wrestle like ELP.
Speaking of which, I guess I'm just gonna throw this out there. I don't know if you saw the Heavenly Butterflies broke up.
Oh, they did?
Past weekend. Yeah. Tony, he's not Tony Denai anymore. He's Tony Twist, apparently. He's been Tony Twist for a while, I guess. Tony Twist turned on Fabu and bloodied him, left him in a puddle of his own blood. They're fucking broke up. They're feuding, bro. The Heavenly Butterflies are no more. And this is not we're teaming, we're feuding in this company, but we're going to continue to travel the country. Bro, they're breaking up. It's donezo.
So which side are you on?
I don't know. I think Tony's the evil one, the perpetrator here. So I might need to turn up to some of those CCW shows coming up here shortly to see what happens. I might potentially have a hand in booking some of this shit. We'll see.
Ooh, nice.
Well, I mean, they're coming to the master and asking me what to do, and I'm just telling them to do Brett Y2J. So
nice.
But I'm not telling them that. I'm like, yeah, what you need to do. And I'm literally just beat for beat telling them to do the 2008 Shawn versus Jericho feud.
Discord Daddy asked, why is ELP so bloody frustrating? And I'm not sure what he means. I don't know if he's just talking about the push, or I don't know.
It could be like he had such an outstanding match this one time, but the rest of the tournament, he's underperforming. His slotting in the tournament, underperforming, having 6 points, like, probably is frustrating if you're a fan of his, to not live up the potential that you think he has.
Yeah, I think coming out of the tournament last year, if you wanted him to have a better run this year, I can see where this would have been very frustrating.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. A few other questions here, and then we'll jump into looking what's coming up this week. Death Triangle 720, it says, a question to Phil: which young talent could use a change in theme song and presentation?
Show them, straight away. I just think you got to figure it out. Like, I don't mind it as a first gimmick for him straight out of being a young lion, but I just don't think it's working.
Yeah, that's a good call right there. He also asked, do you think this year's G1 has been a success more than last year in terms of rebuilding their main event scene?
Yeah, I think that this tournament has been very, very good. Last year I kept up, but once it started getting in the wonky book, and I'm like, okay, I'll come back by the playoffs, finals. I've watched every night of this tournament. I've been locked in. I think this tournament has been exceptional since night one. Night one was very good, and once night one was in, I was like, all right, let's stay in. Let's see how this goes. I think night 12 was incredible, easily the best night of the tournament. I think they've told a lot of good stories. I think that they've built up the guys that they want you to be invested in, even the guys that, like Shota, that you can see a future in. I didn't see anything that bad in this tournament that made me think, okay, I'm down on this guy. I think all of the guys they want you to see a future in, you can see it.
Yeah, I thought the tournament's been great this year, and we've talked about it. There's a lot of people that have been pretty harsh critics as far as the matches go in this tournament, but I thought the tournament's great. Like you all said, I've been locked in every night. And I've enjoyed it. When I was catching up on the anniversary, I was having a blast. Like, I watched like 3 shows back to back to catch up and get ready for this week's show. And yeah, I think the tournament's been really fun. I love how unpredictable it's been. So yeah, I think it's been a great tournament. It's really helped establish some people, and I think that we're in a good spot going into the fall.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people that are like, "What am I going to do now that the Olympics are over?" I've been sitting around like, I don't know, when the G1's over, what can I do? Watch weekly wrestling again?
Any thoughts on that one, Josh?
Nope.
All right. Let's Commission 7252. Do you guys think everyone on each block had a nice enough spot for where they were placed on the match card when it came to who got to the main event? Ocon got his main event on the last night, but I was surprised that Shota Umino, Gabe Kidd, and Jeff Cobb didn't get at least a single main event.
I didn't really track that too much, to be honest with you. So I wasn't really paying that much attention to who got what main events and where, but that probably would have been something helpful because, I mean, you look at them and especially with Umino and Gabe Kidd, you probably could have gleaned a little bit about their point standing if you knew that they weren't getting main events. And maybe that's a forebearer for Cobb. Maybe that's telling us that he's not going to get through either. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to that. I think Umino is probably the glaring one if I had to guess that he didn't get a main event out of this, considering what they hyped him up to be coming into this tournament. But I think it also says a lot about the way that they booked him throughout the tournament, that it's not that surprising when you've watched all 15 nights up to this point that he didn't get a main event. Yeah,
I for sure thought that maybe the Naito Umino match could have main evented, but yeah, that was kind of right in the middle there. And so yeah, and he was in the A block, and there was a lot of stars in it. You know, you had Zack, Shingo, Naito on that A block. So definitely tough for him to get a main event spot there, but yeah, I think overall they did a good job with what was the main event and semi-main events for the stories that we're telling. Barry Walsh asked, do either of you have any predictions for factions with comings or going based on what's gone on in the G1? I know you don't like the fantasy book, but any hunches?
What do you guys think?
I'm starting to think more and more that people have wanted Gabe Kidd to step up and be the leader of Bullet Club, but I'm starting to see more and more he might probably leave. I just see more and more he's getting too popular. I can see him turning babyface.
Yeah, I mean, that would kind of go right in line with what we've seen in the past from other, I hate to call New Japan a farm league, and it's not quite that, but I mean, we saw a time in the indies where like guys weren't staying involved very long. Guys weren't, having runs in PWG for very long before they were getting picked up. And that was, 2, 3, 4 years ago. Now we're at a point where with the current state of the economy in New Japan, if they don't have a long-term contract and they don't have the funds to retain their services, like what's the alternative? What are they going to do? They're clearly going to sign, especially if it's a foreign talent, with either WWE or AEW. Like that's the next logical progression. And instead of holding on to those guys for 5 to 8 years, they're holding on to them for like 2, 3 years, and then they're gone.
Yeah. I think definitely. I don't know when it will happen, but I think a Gabe face turn would be great, and maybe a whole story of him getting back to his roots and maybe eventually joining Hantai could be pretty cool.
That's, my one big criticism. I think that they've done a great job with the tournament, but like you said, Jeremy, it's been unpredictable. Because it's been unpredictable, you're giving a lot of different guys crazy wins. It negates the steady narrative that you've seen in some of Gato's other classically booked tournaments where people have dominant runs. And the only person that's really had what you could kind of call a dominant run really is Zack Sabre Jr. And that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Discord Daddy asks, whose stock rose the most this G1?
It's got to be Gabe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's either Gabe or Olex. I don't know if Takeshita.
I was going to say, you could say Takeshita.
I don't know if Takeshita counts, though, because his stock was already up there, but I don't know.
It was definitely up there in terms of like how people viewed him as a talent, but I don't know if anyone saw this particular avenue as a potential for him where it's like, he could be the ace of New Japan right now.
Yeah, he could. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's kind of a cheat answer to go with Takeshita, but I guess you can say Takeshita because, yeah, it's either Takeshita or Gabe Kidd, really.
Yeah, I think those are the top three right there. Yeah, Gabe, Takeshita, Oleg.
I think some people would probably make an argument for Ybor as well.
Yeah. Doc in Discord says, I feel like Okada leaving New Japan is to benefit them because it's forced New Japan to move forward with new people on top, whereas we see AEW and WWE going with talent they had their time 10 years ago. Do you guys see the future of New Japan clearer because of G1?
Yeah, I think that they've taken a good step in the right direction to flesh things out and establish guys a bit more. Even if I have some criticisms about their way of going about it, they've clearly done more in this year's tournament than they had in the past like 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think the future is a lot clearer. Again, like if you look at, even if we're sitting here and saying, all right, they didn't put a definitive stamp on Shota Umino, I think even with them, with him being the guy that eliminate one of the top heels in the company from the tournament, that shows that they're invested in him in some way.
Yeah, I think that this was a good kind of reestablishment tournament, and yeah, also we've mentioned like there could have been some stronger pushes, but I do think that we're seeing guys get chances. You know, a few years ago we wouldn't have had a guy like Hanare in this thing. You know, he's always kind of struggled to find a spot in these G1, and so seeing him in there and doing good, and then all of the Reiwa guys, and also Zack Sabre Jr. Going out there and Shingo, and so I think that we have a really good roster right now, and so I think that the future is pretty bright. Like I said, I think we're in a good spot for a good fall and a good Tokyo Dome season. All right, well, that's going to take us to the last few nights here. So on Wednesday, August 14th in Hamamatsu, we have the final B block tournament night. So with the card order, it will be Hiroki Goto versus Hanare, El Phantasmo versus Dave Finlay, Konosuke Takeshita versus Ren Narita in the semi-main event spot, and then the main event will be Jeff Cobb versus Yota Tsuji.
All right, so I know what I think is happening with these 4 matches without even looking at the math, without even looking at the potential play-in scenarios and stuff. I'll just tell you what I think is happening, and then I don't know, Jeremy, if you're able to tell me what I'm predicting based off of what I'm seeing. So I think Hanare beats Goto. I think David Finlay ELP shocks David Finlay and upsets him and kind of puts himself in line for that global title. I think Takeshita beats Ren Narita. I don't see Ren Narita like beating Takeshita on the final night. And then I think Tsuji takes the big step up and beats Cobb in the main event. So where does that leave us? That's what I'm seeing. I don't know what you guys think.
What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I kind of predicted it about the same way. I just think that Goto's going to win this match. I think Goto's going to win his final match of the tournament.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you see the card the same way, but you've got Goto winning.
Yes.
So I wonder what that math looks like if we can compare and contrast. I have no clue.
A Goto win really complicates things because then that puts him to 10, and then you have everybody else at 10. So that you'd have to look at the tiebreakers to see who would advance there. I'm more leaning in Josh's camp. I think that Hanare being a champion needs to get to 8 at least. So I see him, and it's the first match of the tournament of that night. So usually those matches aren't really consequential. So I think Hanare is going to beat Goto, and Goto's done both men and at 8. Now, initially, I was thinking Phantasmo was going to beat Finlay. However, so if we go Josh's route where Finlay wins, Takeshita wins, Tsuji wins, you have all 3 guys at 10 and a 3-way unbreakable tie because they have all.
Oh, so what I'm saying literally can't happen because they're not going to book that.
I mean, unless they want to do something convoluted because, hold on, let's see.
I mean, in eras past of New Japan, they would, but we're not living in those eras any longer, and Gato has just never done that in any of his booking.
Yeah, so
it would be a first.
Yeah, so Takeshita beat Tsuji and lost to Finley. Tsuji beat Finley but lost to Takeshita. And Finley beat Takeshita but lost to Tsuji. So I don't know how you would figure out who gets first, second, and third.
Right.
Boy, if we end this tournament with Rita beating Takeshita, I just
Yeah.
oh my god.
Well, because I feel pretty confident that Tsuji is beating Cobb. That's just my gut feeling.
I feel strongly on that, but I think that Finley is going to end up upsetting Phantasmo, and Finley is going to win the block in that match and be at 12. And then Takeshita, Narita, Cobb, and Tsuji are fighting for second and third.
Okay. Yeah, see, because I'm looking at those matches and I'm like, ELP and Ren Narita are kind of like, even though the point total, for Takeshi and Ren Narita, the point totals are pretty much the same. Like, he's kind of still playing spoiler. So it's like, which one do I think is the more plausible person? Like, is Ren Narita gonna upset Takeshi and keep him out of the block? Like, I just cannot even no matter what, I just cannot see
to that Gato.
TK and Gato not having Takeshi go into the block final. So with that being said, I mean, I've been holding on to this ELP upsets Finley thing all tournament long, but if that's not going to work out, it's not going to work out. Like, maybe we get Takeshi and Tsuji in the number 2 and number 3 spot, and then Finley's at the top. Is that what the math looks like?
Yeah, unless if you really want the Phantasmo win, then I think Cobb has to beat Tsuji so that Cobb's a clear 12-point winner, and then Finley would still actually get through with a loss then to Phantasmo. And
what if Goto won?
Let's see, I have to look at tiebreakers. So yeah, Goto needs Finley. He needs Phantasmo to win. He needs Narita to win, and I think he needs Cobb to win to advance.
Oh, well.
So, but if he won his match and those things didn't happen, he just wouldn't get through, right?
I don't think so.
Okay. I don't think his path is likely. Personally, I don't see ELP beating Finley and Ren Narita beating Takeshita and Cobb beating Tsuji.
Yeah, I definitely don't see all three of those outcomes happening.
Especially
maybe one of them or two of them, but not all three.
Yeah,
those three guys are already, like at the top of the block, basically. So I don't know. That just seems so unlikely.
Yeah,
I think Kanari's beating Goto, especially for the same reasons we speculated. Like, that gets him to 8 points. That kind of validates his tournament from a points total standpoint. And then, the ELP and the Takeshita matches, those are the ones that I'm like a little, I don't know. If Tsuji didn't get in, right, then none of the Reiwa guys get in. And then that kind of tells us a story where it's like, these guys are still the quote unquote future. None of them were able to step up to the plate.
Yeah. That's why I feel he has to win.
Which is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they should do that with Tsuji after he won the New Japan Cup. I don't think that's a good move.
I think him and Takeshita in the number 2 and number 3 spot makes the most sense. And then Hanari and Tsuji also already have the running history going back to the cup and then earlier in this tournament. So how do we get there? How do we get to Finley on top and Takeshita and Tsuji being number 2 and number 3?
So if Finley beats Phantasmo, he gets to 12 points. He wins the block. Then Takeshita beats Narita, gets to 10. He has a tiebreaker over Narita. And then you have Tsuji beat Cobb, and Tsuji would have the tiebreaker over Cobb. Takeshita has a tiebreaker over Cobb as well. So that would give you Finley getting the bye, and then Takeshita number 2, Tsuji number 3, and they would face off on Thursday.
What if all those things happen, but Cobb wins the main event?
So then you would get Cobb, Finley, and Takeshita.
Okay. I think we're getting Takeshita, Tsuji in the number 2, number 3 spot, and then David Finley at the top of the block.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that seems the most likely.
Yeah. So then that would take us to Thursday, August 15th, where we already know we're going to have Shingo Takagi versus Great Okan in the A2 versus A30. And the way we're booking it, it sounds like it's going to be Takeshita versus Tsuji in the B2 versus B3.
Yeah, so I did take a look at some stuff earlier today. I was talking with Chris Samsa. What did I notice? So nothing too crazy, but Shingo and Zack Sabre Jr. both beat Okan in the tournament already. And then Shingo also beat Zack Sabre Jr. So Shingo holds a win over both of these guys in the tournament. And then all three of them beat Naito. So I don't know. Do with that what you will. But it's like, the winner's going to go through to face Shingo. Shingo already beat both of them.
Well, they're going to go through to face Zack.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So, like, if Shingo were to go through, right, hypothetically, he beats both of them, then that means he would beat both of them twice in the same tournament. I don't know how likely that is or isn't. I know there's a lot of people that are very high on the idea of Shingo being the one that goes through, potentially. At the same time, Zack has already beat Okan. So if Okan goes through, it would either be Okan like being the guy that really steps up and gets to the finals here and goes through two of the top guys in his block, or Zack would have to have beaten Okan twice in the same tournament. I'm feeling like Shingo going through and then losing to Zack so that Zack can avenge his loss kind of just makes the most sense to me. Not because unabashedly, I have predicted Zack to be the guy to go through from the block, but for the reasons of just probability standpoint, because of the prior outcomes in the tournament, it's hard for me to imagine these multiple defeat scenarios playing out. Whereas Shingo going through and then, getting the even score with Zack kind of makes more sense. The only bad part about it is Okan would be losing to Shingo twice in the same tournament.
Yeah.
Unless we think, unless Okan goes through and beats both of them, avenging both of his losses, and makes everybody even Stevens.
Yeah, they could do that, and then there's your young guy in the finals, Great Okan, which I think nobody would have expected from day one.
They have never shown the faith that was something that they're really going to do. And my feeling is, if they do that, there's no way Great Okan wins the whole tournament. I think there is a world where he could become the finalist, and that would be quite something. Some people would probably really love it, but I don't think it's likely, and he can't win the tournament because I don't think there's money in him and Naito in the dome.
I don't think that sounds absolutely crazy. Going into this like year after Okada's gone, and you're going into Wrestle Kingdom booking Great Okan versus Naito. I absolutely do not see that.
Especially he's still, KOPW champion. Like, yeah, it's
no.
I could see him upsetting Shingo and then Zack beating him in a very close match just to kind of get him there. But I think probably most people would want to see another Shingo-Zack match, Zack get the win back, and get to the finals.
If we're booking for greatness, then yeah, that's like the route you go, because that's a guaranteed incredible matches sort of situation. The thing though is, like, how many times has a foreigner gotten to the finals of a G1? Like, very few. Like, there's Rick Rude, Kenny Omega, Jay White, Will Ospreay. Like, I think those are the only four in the modern, like, G1 Climax era. That's it. Oh, Carl Anderson. So 5.
Right, like Machine Gun.
I'm pretty sure that's it. So Sabre getting there is a big deal. I don't think it's a guarantee that he wins, but that's kind of that's the scenario I'm seeing, is Zack beats Shingo.
I think it's Zack's time. I think that if you're gonna go this route and kind of give him this dominant tournament where he gets 14 points, I think you should just go the whole way and give him the win. I think right now, you don't have really anything to lose by giving him this big win.
Well, I also did some other research, and I don't know if this is going to sway anything, but just kind of looking at the numbers in the past, and I was kind of reeling some of this off with Samsa. So only 4 guys have ever gone undefeated in their block. That was Choshu in 96. He finished with 8 points. Fujita in 05 with 14 points. Tenzan with 8 points, and Sonata with 14 points. Choshu and Tenzan both went on to win the tournament. So they're the only 2 that went undefeated through the whole entire tournament. If you don't take into account the single elimination years, because they had like 3 or 4 of those. Oftentimes when someone is really dominant throughout the tournament, they lose in the finals. And I do feel nervous about the fact that Zach has finished so strongly at the end, and he's a white guy. And there's just a precedent there where I'm like, fuck that. He might not be the, plus I don't know if they see him as a Tokyo Dome main eventer still to this day. You know, that's the part of it. Beyond that, in terms of like guys who've just won the most in the tournament, not gone undefeated, but just with the most points, 4 guys have ever hit 16 points in a block. And that was Nakamura, Styles, and Okada in 2014. But keep in mind, they were all in 11-man blocks. And that year, Nakamura and Okada went on to the finals, and Okada won. So he had 9 wins in that tournament. And then in the 2021 tournament, Okada and Cobb both famously got 8 points in their, or 8 wins in their blocks. And Okada went on to win the tournament and had 9 wins. So Okada's had the most wins in a tournament twice. But the other guys in the tournament that weren't him, Nakamura, Styles, and Cobb, who did extremely well, they all lost. And when I was kind of going through the histories, oftentimes people that are booked the strongest in the block lose the finals. Very rarely do they have a really, really strong block and also win the tournament. And so that makes me nervous about, because let's say Zach does win it all. Zach would then have tied Okada's 9 wins in a tournament record, which is the most in a single tournament. Which I don't know if they're going to give that, I don't know if they're thinking about the prestige of that, but I don't know if they're like, yeah, we're going to give him 9 wins in the tournament. I hope they do. Like, I'm a huge fan, and I think now's the time to pull the trigger on the guy, but I'm nervous about it.
Yeah, I think those stats, opens the door for a guy like Yosuji to win the G1.
I am still kind of like counting on the idea that it's going to be Zach Suji and then Suji beats him, but I don't know if that's a Tokyo Dome main event either. I'm also kind of trying to think of the business side, like what is of these guys that we've talked about, just assuming they're the ones to go through: Takeshita, Suji, Shingo, Finley. Who do we see realistically being the guy opposite of Naito that's going to draw the most money on January 4th?
I mean, if you're talking about the best story and possible drawing, it's probably Suji, just based off of the story you could tell of him winning the New Japan Cup and getting the match against Naito and losing, and then coming back and getting the G1 and coming back to the top of the mountain and then getting the big win at Wrestle Kingdom. I think that does make the most sense story-wise and drawing-wise, but
there's also a story with him and Shingo, though.
Yeah, for my personal taste, I still think it should be Zach. I think based on like the history and stuff you already have with Shingo and Suji, it probably makes more sense to give it to those 2 guys, and they feel like ready-made Dome wrestlers. I don't know. I mean, we've seen Zach at the Dome, but I don't know if they see him as a main eventer. That's the only big question around it.
The only other thing that you could point to is like, who do they have that is a foreign talent that can potentially be a headliner for a Tokyo Dome level type show at this current time? And like, maybe you could say Gabe in a few years. He's not there yet. ELP, that ship's probably sailed. I personally don't see Finley that way. Maybe they do. I think he's a rung below. Clearly they've got big plans for Oleg Boltin in the future. But if you wanted to have a guy that can like be the tip top of the card when there's no Kenny Omega, there's no Jay White, there's no Will Ospreay anymore, now would probably be the time to, break glass in case of emergency on Zack Sabre Jr. But Phil, I mentioned this on the show before. I don't know if you've heard this stat, but I mean, if you think about it, like, who are the foreigners that have ever won the top, round robin tournament in New Japan's history? It's Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, and Kenny Omega.
Yeah, I mean, the only good thing I can say with Zach that would lead me to believe that they can see him in that way is based on just the partnership with AEW alone. You had him in the big matches. You had him in a big match with Bryan this year. He won that match against Bryan in Japan. I feel like this is his best chance that you're going to get to make him into the next top Gaijin guy. It's now. I mean, if it's not now, then it's going to be never.
Yeah.
So then it sounds like we all kind of think Zach's the most likely guy to go through at the top of the block.
I don't know if I believe he's the most likely. He's who I want to win.
Yeah. So then I think in the A block, there's interesting stories any way you go, because if Shingo goes through, you can get a Shingo Tsuji all LIJ final that leads to an all LIJ Dome main event. Obviously there's a story there of doing Zack Naito again. There's a story there of doing Okan Naito again. There's a story of doing Naito Tsuji. There's a story to have Takeshita win, and you have Takeshita go against Naito in the main event.
I really, unless like he signed some sort of deal or something like that, I really don't see that happening. But on the B block side of things, I'll say this: if you're booking a winner to come out of B block, the only name that makes sense to me is Tsuji, for business reasons. That's not to say that he's the only person that could be the finalist from B block. There are scenarios where I could see any three of them going through, but in my opinion, if Takeshita or Finlay are that man standing on the opposite end of the A block, winner, they're losing. And I kind of feel like if Okan is the guy on the other end, then the B block guy's probably winning. Like, for me personally, the only three names right now that make sense to win this tournament and headline the Dome, I think it's down to Shingo, Zack Sabre Jr., or Tsuji.
Yeah, I think those are the ones that make the most sense.
Yeah, I agree.
And I could see a final where a Shingo or a Zack were hypothetically up against a David Finlay or a Takeshita. But I think the final that makes the most sense to me is Tsuji versus either Shingo or Zack. And if it's Shingo, it's anybody's game. And that's a LIJ versus LIJ thing, and maybe that could lead to the theme of the Tokyo Dome. But I could realistically see it being Zack Tsuji. That's kind of the match to make, I feel like.
Yeah, I think out of those three choices, those all make sense. Going back to the Tsuji match from the New Japan Cup makes a lot of sense. Giving Shingo the chance to go to the Wrestle Kingdom and win after, the pandemic title reign makes a lot of sense as well. I don't know. Like I said, for my personal taste, I just think it's Zach's time.
Yeah. So August 17th, Saturday, that's when we're going to find out semifinals, who Zach's going to face from the A block, and we'll see who the B1 winner is versus the B2, B3 winner. And then on Sunday, my birthday, August 18th, we'll get a G1 finals, and we'll find out who the A block winner is versus the B block winner. And we'll get our winner of the G1 Climax 34.
I want to say that it could be Zach. But every single time I felt like it could be a foreigner that wasn't Kenny Omega, they lost. And the one time where I was really confident on it was when it was Ospreay Okada, and I was like, this is the time. I mean, I heard that promo that Ospreay cut, and I was like, oh shit, he's winning the tournament. And it didn't happen. So I'm like, what what's changed here? You know, it's tough. It's like I want to believe in Zach and I want to say it's coming home and all that shit, but I think it might be Suji. I think it might be Suji versus Zach, and Suji wins. And you know, kind of the trajectory there is like Suji faces off against Takeshita, the guy that beat him on the first night. He wins. He overcomes Finley, a guy that's kind of been a thorn in his side all throughout the year. And then he beats the top foreigner in the company and Zach. And then, you know, LIJ is imploding.
Yeah, I mean, they did drop the seeds of that LIJ versus LIJ multi-man before the G1 on the New Japan Soul Tour. So maybe that was the breadcrumbs that they were throwing down, that they're doing this LIJ versus LIJ final leading to a LIJ versus LIJ Dome main event.
It is rare that they do the April title match in the Dome later. I think the last time they might have done that, and I'm just speculating, but I feel like it was probably like in 2012 or 2013 when it was Tanahashi Okada feud.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how that's going to happen, but that's going to wrap up our G1 coverage for the week. Josh, you want to run us real quick through that Capital Collision car announcement, and then we can do a few.
I will, but you guys didn't give your final predictions.
Well, my bracket got turned in. I turned in Suji versus Zach in the final, Suji winning, so I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah. I personally, I think if I had to guess, I'm going to go with Zach making it to the finals.
Give a Zach Takeshita. Come on.
I just don't see that happening. I don't see it.
Well, if you don't see that happen, there's no way they're doing Finley. They're not doing an all white man.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't see Zach Finlay as the finals because like I said, if it's just Finlay, I think whoever's on the other side is beating him. I think that I just don't see Finlay making it to the finals and winning. I'm gonna go Zack Sabre versus Suji for the finals.
All three. We all see it. We got the vision.
Yeah.
Watch it not happen. Well, let's jump into the news. So Capital Collision will stream as a pay-per-view on NJPW World August 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The announced card to this point, the NJPW Strong Women's Champion Mercedes Moné will be in action. NJPW Strong Openweight Champion Gabe Kidd defends against Leo Rush. NJPW Strong Tag Team Champions TMDK will defend against Hechicero and Virus. The NJPW Strong Tag Team title #1 contender match will be taking place as Robbie Eagles and Bad Dude Tito of TMDK take on the grizzled young veterans James Drake and Zach Gibson versus Hiroshi Tanahashi and Tomohiro Ishii. In singles action, you have Zack Sabre Jr. versus T-Tan. That's another one. It's a little. Do we see the G1 winner turning around and facing T-Tan, a junior heavyweight on Capital Collision? I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, the only thing is, it is an LIJ guy. So if Zach's going to face Naito in the Dome, you're throwing him an LIJ guy.
Nice little save there, Jeremy. Tom Lawler and Fred Rosser versus West Coast Wrecking Crew, and then Trish Adora versus Hanako. And that is going to do it for the news.
Then we have a few quick questions here, and then we'll wrap the show up. So front of the show, Rich Latta says, who wins a fashion versus Seth Rollins or Hiromu Takahashi?
For ugly, ridiculous outfits, or for actually having swag? Like, I don't know.
I mean, actually having swag, it's Tanahashi.
You mean Hiromu?
He said Hiromu, not Hiroshi, Hiromu Takahashi.
Oh, Hiromu.
Yeah, he's talking about Hiromu coming out with like the tentacles and the fucking feathers and all that shit.
Oh, yeah, no, it's Rollins.
Yeah, I think Seth Rollins would actually beat Hiromu.
Yeah,
he's got too many varied outfits.
Yeah, I feel like Hiromu just has like the eyeball thing and the fur. Yeah, Rollins could be mixed to do all kind of wild stuff.
Rollins wears fuck shit.
Rollins having a Tokyo Dome entrance with like crazy stuff against Hiromu would be crazy.
Rollins being in the Tokyo Dome period would be crazy.
Yeah.
That dude named Menace says, your thoughts on how cursed the N1 is this year?
No thoughts. Fuck Noah.
Noah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, go out. A couple other people got out too. So yeah,
I don't got fighting spirit.
Not a good start. Where's their mana at?
They don't got that dog in them. You know what I'm saying?
Craving _awesome 099 says, when Rihoi Oiwa gets back, how would you book him and against who?
I'd have him win the title, and then I'd have him beat everybody. I don't know, man.
I book him not to cut his hair. Def Franco 720, did you guys watch Oiwa's Kaito? And if you did, what did you think of Oiwa's performance? Do you think Oiwa will return before the end of the year?
No. That's a good one.
I did not watch it.
Yeah, I saw clips. The clips look great. Maybe I'll watch it eventually, but I have not seen it yet. I think it'd be cool for him to come back maybe after Tokyo Dome. Get him in the mix. Then last question here, last question 7252. Could you guys take time to watch Oiwa's Kaito Kiyomiya from last Friday? Oiwa look more of a star than the champion Kiyomiya, in my opinion. I would say that it's much better than the Kiyomiya versus Kid match a few months ago.
I got an idea. You take all these Reiwa guys, right? They storm out at the end of an episode of Monday Night Spirit Perezu, and they cut a promo talking about how they've been overlooked, and then they attack the top stars in the ring. They cut up the ring. They choke out the fucking announcers. They put on some yellow armbands.
The Reiwa Nexus.
The Reiwa Nexus. Let's do that shit.
Oh boy. All right, well, that's it for the questions. Phil, thanks so much for joining us this week on the show. Please tell our listeners where they can find you online and what you got coming up this week.
You can find me online at PhilDL616 on Twitter. Of course, you can find me on Fightful's YouTube channels at noon Eastern, hosting Grapsody every Saturday.
Nice. Make sure you guys follow Phil. Check out Grapsody. Great stuff there on Fightful. And that's going to wrap it up for us. Next week, we'll be back to review the finals of G1 Climax 34 with our good friend Karen Peterson from Post Wrestling. So remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. You can also make a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On X, follow us at KI Strong Style, at Social Suplex, and at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/Social Suplex and the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy, Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. On YouTube, we are at Social Suplex. You can join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, jeremy@socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite with Floyd Johnson and Austin Sumowitz. Imps WWE Adventure with The Implications, Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Chris Things. Tunnel Talk with Ali and Leah. And the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Am I supposed to save my part here? Go, Ace!
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.